Good evening. My name is Neda Portikori, and today is April 13, 6/11. We are the zoning and, I was going to say landmarks with yes, like in landmark. Zoning and economic development. And we have a full agenda. We are going to start with small business data briefing and resources. Maggie Peruta, if you can please, start us off, it would be.
And Maggie,
Hi,
I have your
everyone.
slides.
Say it again, sorry.
I believe I have your slides.
I can also share my screen, whatever is easier.
I will make you a presenter. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Um,
There you go. Should be able to share screen.
Okay, can you guys see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Maggie. I'm an economic development specialist from the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. The Manhattan Chamber of Commerce is a member-based organization. We've been around since 1920, supporting business growth in Manhattan. And we, in addition to our member-based organization and offerings, we also do proactive pro bono outreach to small retail storefronts. And we have several programs. One program that we're hosting right now is our Tech to Table program, which is an accelerator that equips small retail storefronts with AI skills they need to advance their business. So, but for today, I will be sharing some of the research that we published in December 2025. So this is what we're calling our retail storefront tracker. And this is the first attempt at collecting data and reporting on data to get at small retail storefront well-being in New York. And we actually report this at the community district level. And so what I'll be presenting today is specific to CB1, and happy to share, the link to the broader report as well. So the whole goal of this is to equip decision makers with the data they need to make decisions on behalf of small businesses. And so we pull from several data sources for this work, and I'll go through each of them and hopefully try and explain them. So the first data source we pull from is from a company called LiveXYZ, and they actually have a team that on the ground every 6 months surveys the retail landscape. And from that, they report vacancy data. So this slide is still at the Manhattan level, and it shows our current stock of retail storefronts, and it shows what the vacancy rate was in Q3 2025. So for Manhattan, it was 13.74%, which compares to around 11% citywide. It's also worth noting that Manhattan's vacancy rate is higher than the other boroughs as well. On this next slide, it shows the turnover rate that has happened since COVID. So what is notable is that 47% of our current stock of retail storefronts are actually new. So there was an immense loss during COVID. Of course, there was also an immense recovery. But yeah, there's been lots of turnover. On this next slide, we break this data down specifically for CB1. So for CB1, the vacancy rate is 22.11%. You see rank number 1, which means it has the highest vacancy rate compared to all of the community districts in Manhattan, which I'll show you kind of a comparison in a second. But on screen here, you have the historical vacancy rate. So you can see in Q1 2020, which is kind of our pre-COVID baseline, it was at 17%, and it's climbed to around 22% and has pretty much stayed there since COVID. So there hasn't really been a significant recovery in vacancy rate. So we published this report in December. For the purposes of this presentation, I was able to add in Q4 2025 numbers, and so that's what you see in green. So there is a noticeable, since we've published this, there has been a 2% or so decline, which is notable. On this next slide, you can see how CB1 compares to the other districts in Manhattan. So again, in Q3 2025, it was at 22%. Even if you account for the reduction in Q4 2025, it would still be ranked number 1 in terms of highest vacancy rates. I know there was a question about Downtown Alliance and how their vacancy rate compares to the overall CB1 vacancy rate. So LiveXYZ allows me to pull data for each bid. So I was able to pull what the vacancy rate is for the Downtown Alliance bid. And in Q3 2025, it was 25% or so, which was actually 3 points higher, percentage points higher than the overall district rate. And then even with the most recent data, it's still 3 percentage points higher. The next data source we pull for this report comes from Placer AI, which is a company that reports anonymous cell phone data. And they use this to estimate foot traffic to specific geographies. So again, we pull this at the district level. And this is actually pulled and reported at over a 6-month period. In 2025, there was 56.2 million non-resident visits. And what I mean by non-resident visits is that these are visits from people that do not live or work in the district. And so we see this kind of as a measure of tourist foot traffic. There's definitely some seasonality you can see in the graph here. But overall, if you compare to April 2021, it's significantly higher. So this is likely part of the COVID recovery in terms of visitor foot traffic. And you can see that improving steadily. This next slide, again, compares this metric to the other districts. So District 1 comes in at ranked number 4. The next data source for this report is a small business well-being survey that we conducted in fall 2025, where we asked business owners a series of questions to understand their perceived sense of well-being. So for this first survey, we got 130 responses, and we do not report at the district level because it is not representative of the district. So this is actually at the Manhattan level. We're hoping in the future, if we get enough responses, we can report the answers to these questions at the district level. But for the purposes of this presentation, we pull in 2 of the questions we asked. The first one, which is how businesses rate their current overall health status. And what's notable here is that nearly half of businesses feel their health is average, while a quarter are struggling. The next question we pull in here is how effective businesses feel the New York City government is at promoting their well-being. And what's notable is that 68% deem it either very ineffective or somewhat ineffective. And so these kind of findings combined kind of underpin this work to try and make tangible what the well-being is around small businesses in Manhattan so that we can take actionable steps towards helping to meet their needs and solve challenges facing them. The last source we pull from for this report is from our Small Business Resource Network. So this is a program that we started during COVID and have run ever since. And we have business specialists that actually go door to door to every storefront in Manhattan to connect these businesses with free resources. So it's a free program, and we aim to connect businesses to free resources to help meet their challenges. And when our business specialist meets with a business owner, they collect data, just very high level categorical data on the types of resources they're requesting. So for District 1, technology, financing, and navigating agencies were the top 3. Financing across the board, as I'm sure you know, is a top challenge. So that wraps up the data portion of this, but this work is born out of what we call our Storefront Business Coalition, and it is led by one of our board members, Patrick Hall, who's on the screen here with his wife, and they operate Elon Flowers. And usually he's here with me while I present the data to share his testimony about what it's like to be a business owner and what the challenges are that he faces, but he's not here. And so I have a testimony, and hopefully you can see this, that he has shared with me. So I'm just going to read this really quickly on behalf of him. So, good evening, Chair and members of Community Board 1. My name is Patrick Hall. I am the co-owner of Elon Flowers, a small business that has operated in Lower Manhattan for over 40 years. My wife and I have owned and operated the business since 2015, and during that time, we have grown it while navigating the full reality of running a storefront in New York City. I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person tonight. I am in Washington, D.C., participating in a small business advocacy briefing, but I appreciate the opportunity to share a business owner perspective. Running a storefront business in Lower Manhattan is both a privilege and a constant challenge. We manage high fixed costs, complex regulations, inspections, and ongoing economic uncertainty, all while trying to serve our customers, support our employees, and contribute to the life of the neighborhood. What I want to emphasize today is simple. Small storefront businesses are not just economic units, they are neighborhood infrastructure. We create street life, provide local jobs, and help define the character and safety of our communities. But the systems we operate within are often fragmented, time-consuming, and difficult to navigate, especially for small operators without dedicated compliance staff. Through my work with other business owners, a few themes come up consistently. The complexity of permits, inspections, and compliance can delay openings and strain existing businesses. Unpredictable enforcement and fines create financial risk that is hard to plan for. Lack of coordination across agencies forces small business owners to spend time navigating systems instead of running their businesses. These are not abstract issues. They affect whether a storefront opens, survives, or closes. From my perspective, the opportunity in front of us is not simply to support small business in theory, but to make it easier to operate one in practice. That means streamlining processes across agencies, improving transparency and predictability, creating clearer points of contact for business owners, designing policy with input from those who are actually running storefronts day to day. My own advocacy work comes from lived experience. I became involved because I had to, because navigating the system is part of the job, and because I believe policy improves when it reflects real-world conditions. I also want to say, I believe strongly in working collaboratively with government. Most public servants want to get this right. When we approach this work with mutual respect and a shared goal of stronger neighborhoods, we make better decisions. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to supporting small businesses that help make Lower Manhattan a place people want to live, work, and visit. Respectfully, Patrick Hall. So again, Patrick is on our board, and he has been leading and guiding a lot of this work. And let me just pull the slides back up real quick. So from Patrick and other business owners' experiences, from the data we just shared with you, the Small Business Wellbeing Survey, we have created what we're calling the Main Street Deal, and this is a high-level policy framework that outlines 5 neighborhood storefront rights. So those are safe storefronts, fair leases and transparency, fair enforcement, affordable taxes, and economic accountability. There's much more details under these pillars on our website. And as part of our Storefront Business Coalition, we are asking business owners to join us to help guide how we advocate for the Main Street Deal, but also for business owners. And so I'll share these slides so that you guys all have it and can look more into this, but yeah. And as part of this work, I mentioned the surveys was one of our sources, but we will be releasing an updated version of this report in June. We hope to update the report twice a year, and it relies on business owners to help give us the valuable data. And so right now we're promoting our spring 2026 survey. So that's what this graphic is for. That's kind of the end of the small business data briefing. And then just to quickly go through some of the resources that we offer for free for retail storefronts. I mentioned this as one of our data sources, but our small business resource network, where our business specialist goes door to door and connects businesses to free resources. So it can be financial guidance, marketing expertise, technology support, legal counsel, business coaching. We have a huge database of free resources and try and guide businesses to the right ones. Ahead of summer 2026, we also have a couple initiatives. The first of which is our Summer of Opportunity Guide. It outlines the FIFA World Cup, the Sailforth 250 celebration, how small business owners can really capitalize on these events and attract tourists and local residents to their doors. We also are creating a digital interactive map where if a small business submits to it, it'll be promoted to tourists, and it'll be a fun interactive way for tourists to find out what kind of activations small businesses are having this summer. And then lastly, we've been doing a whole webinar series where we are training business owners on different skills and prepping them for the summer. So we have one on Monday about optimizing retail experiences, and another one about the map promotion opportunity I mentioned. But yeah, I think that's it from me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And thank you for your time and for having me.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Are you guys a nonprofit?
Good question.
We are a Chamber of Commerce, which is its own type of entity, but we also have our foundation, which is a nonprofit. So our foundation, our chamber status is where we do our membership work. Our foundation is where we do this proactive pro bono outreach to retail storefronts.
Got it. I have another question about the 25% vacancy rate that you mentioned from the Alliance. This data is from 2025, does not include the RFP that they have sent out and they're collecting back to bring small businesses downtown, correct?
I'm not familiar with the RFP you're referencing, but yes, this is Q4 2025 data from LiveXYZ.
Got it, okay. Richard?
Yeah, let me follow up on that. Thank you for this, by the way. It's very, very informative. Really appreciate it. And of course, very concerning here for Lower Manhattan. Following up on the question about the Downtown Alliance, it was a little surprising to see that vacancy rate was so much higher than other areas. Could you talk about the benefit of, the effect of, and perhaps some explanation as to why you think it might be higher where the bid exists? I would have thought the bid would have had a positive impact, and it doesn't seem
Yeah.
to.
Mm-hmm. So I'm no expert on the Downtown Alliance and their initiatives and interventions, so I can't speak specifically to what they're doing, but I think in general in the district we see high vacancy and we have some ideas as to why. One of them is the since COVID, there's been significantly less foot traffic, which I'm sure you already know. And with residential conversions, we're hoping that changes some of the foot traffic and spending that occurs. But yeah, again, I can't speak to why the bid would have a higher vacancy rate per se.
Well,
More-
I would wonder if some of the vacancy has to do with government buildings versus business buildings. So Downtown Alliance being specifically only FIDI does not include areas that are in the civic center that are government-based, which have an internal support system for ground floor retail. And Tribeca is, other than the larger buildings, tends to be smaller buildings, smaller retail, longer lasting, less pronounced issues with foot traffic. And also with the amount of conversions that you see, they empty the building to be able to convert it, as in Dick's Hardware that's getting booted out of their store. So there's two different
the
typologies that you have to consider for the Downtown Alliance, that when they do their metrics, they're usually comparing specifically to Midtown.
Richard?
Yeah. And I defer to you
On-
guys. You have the local expertise on why these numbers might be this. Yeah.
On your Manhattan storefront churn chart, obviously a very, very significant churn rate and number of storefronts gone and opened. Have you seen or have you tracked the kinds of stores that have been leaving versus the kinds of storefronts that have been coming in?
Yeah, so LiveXYZ does collect that data. I can't give you numbers right now, but in our June report, we're hoping to actually show kind of some of the categorical changes in the retail space for each district. Anecdotally, I do know that there are more experience-based retail storefronts popping up. So more nail salons, spas, gyms, cafes, places that people can spend time. But again, in June, we'll have more concrete categories, and we'll hopefully be able to see like what the actual shift is.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Alex.
Just one quick, so it's a really interesting laying out of what the problems are and the realities are. What are the solutions now that you are actively involved in as a group? Are there certain things that legislatively your group is working on? What sort of direction are you going in right now?
Yeah. So our Main Street deal is our kind of policy response. And what we were doing is we were taking this data, same presentation that I just presented, and we're socializing it with elected officials, community boards, of course, bids. So we're trying to equip decision makers with this data as one of our strategies. In our Main Street deal, we have specific actions that we recommend, mostly at the city council level. And in terms of direct support and service delivery, we have several programs to support small retail storefronts. So we're kind of taking a multi-pronged approach here.
Thanks.
Laura Starr.
Hi,
Go
this
ahead.
is really fascinating. And I'm the landscape architect on the community board, and we design a lot of streetscape work. Like, I'm just curious in Lower Manhattan if you have suggestions for improving the overall urban environment that would help these businesses. Like, if you had a wish list, what would it be
That's a
from an
great
urban design
question.
perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question, but I don't think I'm qualified to answer it, honestly. I'm not an expert in urban design, really.
Do you ever do studies on like the characteristics of areas that are successful versus?
Yeah, we haven't really done that research yet, but I will note your question because we're looking to improve this report too and provide you with what's useful. So yeah, it's a good question.
I think that would be really fascinating to study. It would be really valuable. Like, I don't know if you could have interns do
So
it
the
or
type
something.
of urban infrastructure and design that supports foot traffic and encourages like reduction.
Yeah,
in-
because I
No.
don't find FIDI like I'm just wondering, I mean, FIDI, the streets, they haven't like a lot of them aren't that pleasant to walk down. I'm just wondering, like, the effect of the ambiance, compared to like the meatpacking district, which has done so much to improve the retail environment on the streets with all the technical urbanism. And I'm just wondering, what the sort of chicken and egg aspect of that, and if there were some more innovative, forward-looking interventions that the Alliance could be doing in Lower Manhattan, especially with it converting to residential, to make it feel like more of a residential neighborhood as it converts from a kind of gritty financial district. And I mean, it might be interesting to pair up with like an urban design department or something, and some academic entity, and study that.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure there would be specific interventions that work.
But it is really a great study. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Rosa and.
I'll go last.
No.
No, please, if that's still okay to say.
So I was curious, two things.
Never know.
You're
Number
good,
one
right.
is, I feel like, just to tack on to that, it might be interesting to reach out to the urban planning schools locally and see if any of them might have the appetite or interest to take on a study, because I live in FIDI and work in FIDI, and I agree 100% with what you said. The streets are not particularly, and we can have that discussion, but the streets are not particularly welcoming, and there are a lot of issues. It's horrifying, the data that you shared with us. Thank you for letting us know what we're up against. And it does actually feel like that when I walk the streets. Since it seems like the framework or the structure within which we reward or measure progress in city council, which is to essentially make rules or laws that need compliance, or so basically generating more red tape every year without anybody going back to unravel the red tape that has expired in its useful life. Are there specific cuts to certain red tape that you as an org are recommending to create more efficiency, to be more relevant to today's business needs? So, because I agree completely with what Patrick said in his letter, like
Yeah.
100%. I actually want to
Yeah.
clap afterwards.
Yeah.
What can we do to make life easier for our small business entrepreneurs to actually have a chance at success and not be drowning in red tape?
Yeah, absolutely. Two things come to mind. One, what we're advocating for is an economic statement analysis before legislation is passed that affects small businesses. And so the idea is that, so right now there's a fiscal impact statement that is required before a bill gets passed, but we never understand the full cost to small businesses when we enact legislation, even if it's well intended. And so ideal scenario is there's an actual impact analysis. Second best scenario is that we can successfully get small business voices in the room and a seat at the table before legislation is passed. In terms of actually cutting red tape, one that comes to mind and one of our suggestions through our like Main Street deal is that for first time violations and non-hazardous violations, there's a certain grace period for business owners to remedy the situation. Along with that and related is that it is very difficult to keep track of the violations and the penalties that you're getting from a million different agencies that all have different processes for remedy. And so we're recommending to streamline that process and also create a mobile app or just something that's very simple for small business owners so that they can track the rules that are expected of them regardless of the agency, and also track if they are in violation and how exactly they can remedy it. So that's what comes to mind from your question.
I mean, it depends on the violation, right? And
Yep.
I think when you have a concrete proposal, this board will be happy to support you and look at the concrete proposal that you have. Right now, it's a bit abstract. I'm kind of
Totally,
hesitant in saying that violations, let's like minimize them or move them to the right or left. But we will,
I'm wondering if they're hearing you, because I,
but we will
Yeah, I
look
can
at
hear
it
you.
once we have a concrete proposal. But did you have
I just want to second and thank everybody.
Would Maggie stop, would you stop share so we can see your face
Oh, yes.
better?
Yes.
let's have Richard?
Yes, hi. One more question regarding policy. So over the last few years, there's been a bill floating around city council, not passed, the equivalent of, I forget the name of it, but it's the equivalent of commercial rent stabilization or rent control. Are you familiar with that? And what's the Chamber of Commerce position on that?
Can you explain the bill a little bit? Sorry.
No, we're not gonna explain it back. I don't think that makes sense.
No.
Do you have an advocacy
Yeah.
arm that, so I think the question really
yeah.
becomes, if
Yeah,
you have
so
an
our-
advocacy,
Yeah, so our president is a registered lobbyist, so she's leading all of the legislation and advocacy that we're doing tied to this report, this data, and our Main Street Deal policy framework. So I can follow up with our legislative package, and then also if you have any specific questions, she can go into depth on kind of the chamber's take and what we're pushing for.
Perfect. We will, I'm sure you said in June you have another, your study is going to go more in depth on the issues. We
Right.
will be more than happy to meet with you once you have more details.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
have,
Fine.
Sure.
I wondered if when you come back to us, what I'm very curious to see is whether you track any data between small business versus chain and how that affects. We have an extraordinary amount of small business, and as a microcosm, CB1 has a tiny little piece of Chinatown, and we have the Civic Center, and we have FiDi and Battery Park City. We have, between the Oculus and Brookfield, we have a large disparity of retail in terms of chains and small businesses and things like that. But I've never seen tracking for any small business growth or chain growth, and whether or not the chamber tracks any of that. I'd be very curious to see how that aligns in CB1 in the regional districts. That's one. And secondarily, one of the things that strikes me from every small business that complains when they're closed, there have been hospitality alliance and others have printed reports that one of the, there are three top costs to running a restaurant. It's rent and labor, right? Rent being astronomical, and the swap that we have under City of Yes, and the concerns that I have is we are gentrifying all the Class B and C buildings for better purposes with residential use. But that also means that the retail that was on the ground level that was less expensive potentially is disappearing. So a understanding of what the price point is in Class B and C, which I know the Downtown Alliance does, but for the wider district, right, to understand versus Class A office building would be really important, because that does have a window into vacancies. So, and understanding the drivers and the metrics on that would be really helpful when you come back. And more than anything, I totally appreciate the breakouts that we asked you to do. So thank you very, very much. Contextualizing the microcosm that is CB1 is really important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I just took notes on what you said, so I appreciate the feedback and the thoughts.
I don't see any hands online from anybody. Is there anybody else in the room?
Great, so we can move on to our second item, and thank you, Maggie.
Thank you
Thank
very,
you,
very much,
everyone.
Matt. It was a great presentation.
We are moving on to item number 2, which Manhattan Detention Center is back to give us an update from our last meeting. I don't know if all the committee members had a chance to go through the letter that we wrote, but I can briefly go through bullet points of what we had highlighted last time, and it would be great if the team can focus on the comments that the community board brought up last time we issued a letter. All right, to summarize it. Overarching level, the committee emphasized the importance of long-term adaptability given the scale of public investment and the expectation that the building's use may evolve over time. In that context, we asked the core design, structure, floor-to-floor height, systems, facade to support a meaningful future use. The committee raised questions related to urban context and massing, including buildings' height relative to surrounding Chinatown fabric and the adjacent criminal courthouse, as well as the concept of 4 towers on a podium concept that was presented. There was significant discussion around the ground level experience, particularly along White Street, including how the passage will function, be programmed, and contribute to pedestrian life. The committee focused on the facade design, including the street wall condition, the relationship to historic courthouses, and the use of glazing, versus having a more articulated system, and how the facade decisions relate to interior use, daylight, and privacy. Landscape and wellness were also consideration and were discussed. The committee also raised questions related to the civic context of this building on the site and the landmarks around it. With that said, those were the context of what we had discussed in our last committee. It would be great if you can walk us, and wherever relevant, let us know how you responded to the comments. You're so far.
And just before they get into the presentation, Tammy, I think Addie Powell from DOC has joined. So there's Jeff Margulies from BBC.
Jeff Beckman.
Okay, great. And then I'm just gonna give a shout out, anyone online with the BBJ team who plans to address questions during Q and A. So if there's anyone else from MOCJ or DOC who's on and needs to be able to unmute and speak, please raise your hand so that Tammy can see you and she'll move you over now. Otherwise, you will not be able to unmute yourself to answer questions.
You will still be able to raise your hand if you're dialing from a phone. You're *3 to raise a hand, *6 to unmute once you're recognized.
And just to have it, make sure everyone introduces themselves, their organization, who they are in that organization. Thank you.
No hands raised, you should be good to go.
So thank you for having us here. I'm Aman Krishan. I'm a design principal with HOK Architects. I have with me Autumn Visconti. She's a leader of landscape design, and Jeff Cordell, who is our director of civic and justice practice. So can go to the next slide.
Yep.
So we're here to share with you our design progress, and as you had requested, we're really today focusing on our responses to the letter that we received from you in December. Next. But before we do that, let's just do it. That would be amazing.
I mean, I'm good at pressing the buttons, but make sure you aim it to here, because this is what's actually controlling. There you go. Set.
Excellent. Okay, so we just want to remind you about our engagement process. So we've had 3 community workshops to date. The last one was in March. And we're meeting with you the second time before we go to the Public Design Commission for our preliminary submission in May. We will be coming back again to the community for the 4th workshop, and we'll come back to the community board again before we submit for a final Public Design Commission. Just a graphic version of the same timeline. But we've also started our construction engagement processes. I think we've had 2 sessions there. Today, however, we're here to really focus on design-related aspects and your concerns around that. We take all community feedback very seriously. Every comment has been documented. We've provided written responses to date to those documents, which were handed out at the community meeting. We take those comments and through a data-driven analysis method, analyze key takeaways, and then come back to the community to show how they have been incorporated into the design and how they've modified the design. So here's a summary of the community board letter, similarly, that we're going to be talking through today. So in terms of urban context, height, and massing concerns that you had raised, those are sort of fundamental to our design approach to create a project that's contextual. We've talked about it previously. There are a couple of slides today that where we can reiterate that approach. You had also requested roofscape and mechanical penthouse design. What are we doing on top of the building roofs? All of them, actually, not just the top of the building, but the podium roofs as well. We're going to be incorporating photovoltaics and green roofs on all of these roofs where they're not being utilized for mechanical. Those are legal requirements, and we'll be going to the Department of Environmental Protection with that. That is currently under study, so we don't have that information for you today, but we'll come back at the next meeting with that information. Relationship to streets and civic campus, we can illustrate how they've previously been incorporating. Creating a integrated approach to the neighborhood is very important to us. And again, fundamental to the design. Similarly, it's not working. It's not working.
Again.
There's a free seat
This is the
here,
second one.
proximity helps.
This is the second one, the second page that you.
Yes, that is the thing I was trying to get to, but I'm like.
We don't bite, we're very friendly, really. Lauren might tell you otherwise, but I swear.
Right, so your comments about facade design material and glazing, the fact that they need to be contextual, and we've talked previously about the 2 different contexts, the civic context and the neighborhood of Chinatown and Little Italy, that's again very important.
To us today, we're going to talk a little bit more about how that relates to interior programming and to occupant well-being, also privacy, and how that works. Materiality, as it has been chosen for its long-term performance and durability aspects. What we have shared with you previously has not changed. Should it change, we will absolutely be coming back to you on that. White Street Passage and Public Realm, we're going to share a little bit more details about the functionality of it and programming in direct response to community comments that we've heard from them. We've studied the bridge structure above White Street Arcade. It does not impact the visuals or light penetration down there. We've shared previously shadow studies and daylight studies. I think we have them again today. And we're going to share another update about planting in at all of the public realm at the street level. Similarly, landscape elements, we're going to talk about how greenery has been incorporated and how daylight access impacts that, and show you a little bit more detail about outdoor recreation spaces, including the horticultural space where greenery is incorporated within the building. Historic and civic context, similarly, we've talked about the relationship to both civic and neighborhood context. In terms of landmark considerations, we've been meeting with the Landmark Preservation Commission. We met with them in October last year, and very recently, last week, we met with them again. We have updates to share with you about the artwork conservation program, the artwork that was part of the previous detention facility and how that will be integrated in the design. Exterior signage and messaging is something that we are currently developing. So we don't have details of that today, but we can share a package with you prior to going to the Public Design Commission that will be part of our May submission. Right.
What does that mean then?
No, it worked.
Yeah, I got it. It worked. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just go back. Yes.
Yeah.
There. we go.
Apologies.
Resiliency, sustainability, absolutely critical aspects of the whole program and part of the project. We're going to share with you our flood mitigation or flood strategy or considerations that are on the site. Sustainability strategies are continuously being incorporated and developed in the design. We are absolutely on target for our LEED Gold certification, and we will be submitting for that. For public facing uses, we're going to talk a little bit more about the ground floor uses and access. We talked about materiality, and in terms of long-term flexibility, I think we've talked about it before, but we're absolutely committed to the points of agreement, incorporating future flexibility, including the prefab cells that can be removed very easily from the building, the long span structures, the high floor to floors that provide flexibility of use for the facility itself. So I'm just going to go through the design progress, just the first couple of slides. Guiding principles of humanizing space, being grounded in dignity and respect, has been the guide of the project. And we've got a couple of slides here that talk about where the site is, what the contextual relationships are. And I'm skipping over that because we've talked about this previously, and we're really going to focus today on your letter and our responses to your letter. And we can obviously come back to any of those slides should anybody have a question. So in terms of flood considerations, you're looking at the FEMA map here. Our site is in pink on the map. And you can see that if we are not in the 100-year floodplain or in the 1% chance of flooding, very small portions of the site are in the 500-year floodplain or the 0.2% flooding. What that means in terms of the CRDG guidelines, the way we're designed for it, is sets a base plane of 10 feet that that's the elevation of the sea level. That tells you the risk of, well, you're above the 1% risk. To mitigate the 500-year risk or the 0.2% risk, that base plane raises to 14.3 feet. So as long as the building is above 14.3 feet, we are not at risk to flood. So here's a map where in red, we've pointed out all of the elevations here. The lowest part of the site really is the intersection of White Street and Center Street. So that's sort of the most vulnerable portion. The two retail that we have adjacent there, that rises above, so they're designed to be above that 14.3 floodplain, so they will not be flooded. Of course, as we go towards Baxter Street, we're well above the floodplain. Similarly, along Center Street, public lobby, staff lobby are above the floodplain, as is the entrance to the parking garage above the floodplain, therefore mitigating any reason for the cellar to be impacted by the flooding either. What this does for us as a strategy is prevents us from incorporating any flood walls or any solid walls that will make the project inactive. So this helps us activate and integrate all of these uses as ground floor and create a civic open space.
So 10 feet is what's mandated, and everything that you just showed, it's above.
14.3 feet is mandated.
Got it.
14.3 feet. Everything we've shown you is above 14.3 feet. So the So the other aspect that we're going to share with you is the artwork conservation. So you're looking at 7 pieces of art that were part of the previous detention facility that we're looking to integrate into our project. And they were, 5 of those pieces were a collaboration between Richard Haas and Kitty Snyder, and they were incorporated into the building in the 80s and 90s. Rene Chamblon did 2 of the pieces that were integrated in the building in the 40s. Now we're working with both Richard Haas and Kitty Snyder, and everything that we're going to show you today has their input incorporated. So we have a very rigorous schedule of meeting with them and making sure that the historic intent of the art is preserved. Of course, Rene Chamblon is deceased, so we're not able to do the same thing. But we also have our art conservation experts who are working with us to interpret that art and how that gets incorporated. For public realm, I'm going to ask Autumn to walk us through.
And you're gonna go through where, right?
Sorry, yes,
The
yes,
PowerPoint slides
absolutely.
will show me where, so I don't need to ask that question now.
Yeah, no, we're
Okay,
just going to go through all 7 of them.
Okay, thank you. You want, there you go.
Okay, so since our last meeting, we went back to the community and they voiced some similar questions and challenges that we were studying to incorporate into the site that relates to better understanding the amount of available daylight that's supporting the planting that we're proposing around the site. We'll share an update on that, as well as the need for flexible program areas within the White Street Arcade, as well as the integration of the conserved art pieces. We took all this feedback and we're implementing it as these key takeaways throughout the public realm design, really working in tandem with all of the elements of art, programming, and landscape to provide our update that we're sharing tonight. These elements work together to provide a kind of cohesive public realm along both streetscapes as well as the White Street Arcade. So here is a plan showing the before and after of the site design, specifically showing on the right-hand side how we are incorporating all of the conserved art pieces. Some of these are substantial in size and footprint, so we're using landscape to help balance the public realm scale, as well as using the artwork as a way to kind of celebrate and work with the history of the site. This is a diagram looking at the White Street Arcade, where we're using landscape to help frame programmatic areas within the central spine of the White Street Arcade. Really looking at a vernacular that relates more to Baxter Street, that's active and vibrant on the east, and a little bit more of a formal calming presence to Center Street on the west. We're continually studying the amount of available daylight throughout the year. This gives kind of the extremes of both or all seasons. Again, using this to really inform our planting palette, specifically within the White Street Arcade. As such, we've selected all incredibly shade tolerant understory tree species, as well as canopy species that relate to the larger civic context for the street trees. Part of the understory planting is also a layered planting approach where we're looking at shade tolerant species that really thrive in these conditions and are hardy enough to withstand any kind of long wear and tear of the site. This is kind of a snippet of the overall composition of the landscape palette within the White Street Arcade. It's a raised planter. We are really taking into serious consideration the amount of we're maintaining sightlines across the entire arcade because safety and security was another aspect that was brought up in our community meetings. So we wanted to really share this as a kind of scale comparison of what you would be able to see across the planter beds. Also creating a layered kind of landscape approach in the planting design. We're using this aspect of planting and using landscape to break down the scale of the site, really relating back to the urban context of Center Street as well as Baxter Street and Trent Street. We are also integrating all the art pieces within the public realm. A few of them are within the architectural footprint as well, but for the public realm, we have a number of art pieces and we're going to walk through those here shortly. This is standing on Center Street in front of the facility's main entrance, again, using landscape per your feedback from the letter to really break down the scale of this public realm space and creating this kind of larger vision that relates to integrating some of the conserved art pieces. Our first piece is by the artist Kitty Snyder, is known as the 7 Columns of the Temple of Wisdom. And they're arranged in this kind of portico-like arrangement where people can move through the columns. We've integrated those within the seat furnishing element along Center Street, and they have a relationship with the street trees to create this portico-like experience that people can move through. Moving closer to the White Street Arcade, pedestrians are greeted with a series of planters, again, using the planters to define some of the program areas within the arcade. This was also per your feedback that we wanted to kind of show an activation of the program areas within the center of the White Street Arcade. And then using lighting to really help activate the space at night and making it feel welcoming. We've refined some of the seat walls within the arcade to really help define certain areas for the program zones. So next slide shows kind of a bigger view of that. So we have a gaming zone that relates more to Baxter Street and the adjacent Columbus Park. And then central to the arcade, we are working to incorporate the paving design by the same artist, Kitty Snyder, known as Upright and Righteousness. This takes form as a geometric labyrinth in the pavers. So we are integrating that directly into our overall paving design. This allows for pedestrians to engage with the art piece as they move through the space. Again, using landscape to help break down the scale of the public realm and framing and integrating the artwork. Our last piece within the public realm is also within the White Street Arcade, is by the artist Richard Haas, and it's called Judgments of Solomon and Cal Count. These two reliefs are positioned across from one another to create a portal-like experience that speaks to the Eastern and Western concepts of justice. So we've arranged these reliefs at the entrance of the White Street Arcade along Baxter Street, so pedestrians can engage with this art piece as they enter the arcade. And our last piece we are studying is also by the artist Kitty Snyder, known as Solomon's Throne. And this piece is quite substantial in size, and it plays a part of the kind of larger relationship amongst all art pieces where it invites users to walk under this bridge. So we are looking to study how we can integrate this art piece kind of depicted within the architecture itself, within our bridge as people are allowed to walk under. So this gives an overview of before and after of the White Street Arcade. Again, just a little bit more balancing to integrate more program areas, the art conservation pieces, and then refining the landscape palette to reflect what would appropriately grow in these spaces. As such, this relates to all of your comments in regards to landscaping, programming, and art piece conservation. I'm gonna hand it back to Aman.
So onto the architecture of the building, we again heard, we've documented the comments that we've heard from the community, both workshop 1, workshop 2. Today we'll be focusing on the impact of shadows in relationship to the courthouse, how we integrate the community and retail spaces with the neighborhood to ensure active street fronts, and then one of the art piece is integrated with the architecture as well. I'm going to talk about that. So we looked at that. So just in terms of a massing approach, we're working within the permitted ULURP envelope that was approved in 2019. Last time we talked, we wanted a little bit more understanding of the horizontal datums within the courthouse, so we have incorporated that here. But within the ULURP envelope as well, we're working on a massing strategy that really breaks the scale down quite significantly from what was permitted. Now, the one thing that is new and we want to focus on a little bit is there were questions about privacy for the adjacent neighbors and how we would be addressing that. So there are two components that we'll talk about. The first one here is the outdoor recreation spaces for the people in custody. So what you see highlighted in orange is the location of those outdoor recreation. They are adjacent to every single day room, so that every person in custody has direct access to them. But we have located them in the center of the building. So pulling them away from the corners makes them less adjacent to contextual buildings. And the amount of buildings impact becomes much more reduced. The other aspect is that they're located towards the upper part of the buildings themselves. So therefore, particularly if you look at the north side, facing Chungpak, we're significantly above Chungpak buildings. Now that becomes helpful because we've got an architectural screen at all of these recreation yards that has a 3-dimensional quality to it. So the image on the left-hand side is if you're a person in custody, you're looking out of those recreation yards, but you're facing up, that screen is very, very open. So it maximizes daylight, maximizes access to fresh air, but focuses views towards the sky. As you start looking straight on or start looking down, which is the two central images, that 3-dimensional screen sort of prevents viewing down to any residential, so protecting privacy for the neighbors and for people in custody. Additionally, here's a sort of an axonometric section cut through the recreation yard. We talked about the external screen, which has that 3-dimensional quality, but behind that, there's also the security screen, and there's roughly about 2 feet apart from each other. So the people in custody aren't able to come right out to the front screen as well, again, promoting that sense of privacy. In terms of, so the other aspect that we want to talk about in privacy are the cells themselves. So again, similar to the rec yards, they're located on the upper part of the building, well above adjacent residential buildings. And that is also, the image on the right-hand side is illustrating a typical view from one of the cells where there is a residential scaled window that provides daylight and access to views for people in custody, but up till 6 feet, that window is frosted. So it prevents people in custody looking down onto any residential buildings or preventing any cross view. Additionally, the images on the left and the center is showing a condition where the central condition is what we're proposing in the design. There is a vertical articulation in the building on the outside that creates vertical members that significantly constrains views and therefore, again, promoting privacy. So we're just showing if we didn't have that vertical member, the view would be what you're seeing on the base condition, but what is proposed everywhere is the view in the center where that is controlled and constrained. So those from the outside are the white metal panels that you're seeing. That's what is rotating the glazing away. creating a directionality to it and creating that sense of privacy. But what that also is doing is shading the building from solar radiation and creating thermal comfort for occupant well-being. So it's sort of targeting a couple of different aspects of the design itself. An overall view of Collect Pond that relates to the massing and vertical patterns of fenestration with the courthouse. We had shared previously, before and after of the project, significant changes in materiality based on communities' feedback there. And then a close-up view of the entrance and White Street Arcade with retail and community facility lining all of White Street, making that an active street, integrating that into the neighborhood. A view along Baxter Street where the scale and materiality reflects the buildings across the street as well. And then a more overall view along Baxter Street, and you can see all of the glazing that it has community and retail spaces behind, really supporting the vibrancy of the streets of Chinatown. Now, Richard Haas's Immigrations of Lower East Side, it consists of 7 panels. And these are integrated along Baxter on the south side of Baxter, again, further enhancing that activation and integration with the neighborhood. So where you see the lit windows, that has art integrated behind that. Here's a closer view of what that would look like. They are at pedestrian scale, so there is a direct connection between the art and the people on the street. They are integrated with the module of the architecture, so it is a integrated response. They also are behind glazing, so that protects the artwork and ensures their longevity. We had previously shared with you daylight conditions through various seasons and various times of the day, so we won't focus on that. And with that, we'll move to the interior spaces, starting with interior public spaces.
Very good. So, looking at the commentary that we had from Friday, all right, it was very good. What we've heard from the other, other community meetings, great space that feels less like a jail, allow for visitors to feel welcome. There's storage lock areas. So again, these are also about the amenities for visitors and ways to attract visitors, make them feel comfortable, and to help the facility be more effective in being able to interact with the community. Tonight, we're going to talk a little more, as we've talked about the artwork incorporation. There is also some artwork incorporation in the interior of the facility as well at the lobbies. And again, we'll touch on that. And we've talked about a number of these other elements as far as the lobbies, the welcoming and so forth. So we'll show those again, but we'll talk about where the artwork is actually incorporated. So here's a view, the typical view as you come into the lobby. You can see the information desk. And towards the very back of the areas where visitors then get processed, and they go up to the 4th floor for contact visiting with people in custody that are here at the facility. A view back towards the front, and this is further developed with really more glass, more daylight coming in. A very distinct area where we have a children's play area and group areas for people to gather before they go to visiting. And as a diagram of how really straightforward that is, because we know wayfinding is a very important issue. So we're really trying to make this very straightforward, very simple, easy ways to find your way around, and easy ways to find the storage for your strollers, bags, and other needs that you have, as well as convenient restrooms, lactation, and other rooms that are going to be needed by people that are coming to use the facility. So the one first piece we'll talk about Arms of the City of New York, which in the previous was at the outside of the facility. Now we're looking to study how it might work on the inside of the facility. And then you can see it centered here, as all visitors coming in will really see this as they come in, or actually when they're leaving. So it's in a very prominent place. While it's not outside, it's still prominent, protected from the weather. I think this is an area potentially that that can help preserve it for even longer, and has meaning as people come and go from the lobby area. The other piece of work we have is the Enlightenment, and it's also an exterior piece. And we're looking at actually placing this in the lobby up on the fourth floor where visiting happens. Again, for all visitors to come and see that, see this and being able to experience this as they come and go, again, for a large group of people, but installed internally within the building instead of external. This is an update of the visiting, the contact visiting brings in, we've endeavored to have more daylight, more natural materials, more natural colors, and improve acoustics in the area. So this is just an update of this. And then the interior secure space where we have people in custody. We've been asked, always we're asked, and very importantly about safety, preventing escape, but also the safety for residents in the area, also safety for staff and for people in custody. And how can we prevent cross viewing for Chinatown residents? Actually, I'm hit a lot of that earlier. And then we'll talk a little bit about the education and training spaces. The cell window design we've talked about, I haven't really got into more detail that. And then the recreation space is also to really maximize fresh air and daylight, but also provide that privacy. Repeat of that same comment. This is so this is one of the education spaces. So this is a multi-purpose education space attached with every living unit within the facility. So it gives access to people in custody throughout the day. And no matter what the classification is for people in custody, they will have this access. It's observed by staff, and it's also wired for distance learning as well. Multi-faith anamorphosis is a large room that can be actually divided. It will be used in this larger configuration quite often, but it also can be divided in the middle. And we've approached how the ceiling design works to get more daylight in, bounce more light in. We use more natural looking materials at the floor and the ceiling, and to really increase the feeling of the space for spirituality and spiritual growth. This is the law library. This is a resource really available again to every person in custody. So this has digital information. You don't see the laptops, but there will be computers. Also, there's written material here, and then the desk you see at the right is a help desk. As well as being able to manage the space, also a help desk, and to help people navigate their way through the legal material. And at the top of the facility, an indoor gym. So again, especially for inclement weather, but also for large group activities. The indoor gym plus other passive activities such as yoga, weightlifting, and so forth are also incorporated here at the top of the facility. We mentioned earlier horticulture. So this is an important and effective program that a lot of people in custody will be utilizing. It's at the very top of the building, so not only utilizes the side lights, but also at the very top coming in. So you get daylight coming in from a variety of different directions here. And a reminder that these are many of the values that have been expressed by the city, by the DEC, the OC, and that we always really take these into mind as we progress with the design. We always remind ourselves of the importance of these as we progress the design, and also as well as your input. Thanks, President.
Thank you. It was a very thorough presentation, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to have comments, but selfishly, I'm going to ask my questions first. So there are a lot of population that are mixing inside the lobby from the street, around the street. Can you walk us through how and I'm sorry if I don't know the right term, where the prisoners come from, where do they interface with the public, and how are you treating this mixture of populations?
Sure. So the way the building is organized is that we actually have two distinct street level entries for two groups, one staff, so they have their own distinct one, and then public. As far as people in custody, they enter the building through the vehicle sally port, which is on the south side of the tower. With it, yeah, we can get to that plan. And they come in on that south drive into a secure garage. So via the van or bus. Then they go up into elevators that are distinctly for the detention center into the housing up above. So they go through an admission process on an upper floor, and then they go into the housing. So The only time that there's potentially any interaction with people in custody and public is when they have been processed and go to visit on the fourth floor.
Is it where it says staff lobby on the plan there?
That was a good one, go back, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is the
so,
right one to look at.
so, right, so we have the staff lobby that is that blue portion on the far left. So all staff will come and go from there. Some part down below will come up elevators, but the majority are gonna be coming in that blue staff lobby off the street. The public lobby, all public will come into that lobby that's that, I guess that's the pale salmon colored
You can
area.
use- You can actually use the remote as a highlighter. If you look at the top, very top thing, you go, yep, there you
There
go.
we go, okay, oh, there you go.
So your jail population is all coming from
The jail
down.
population comes in vehicles here through the secure drive. And this is an outdoor
You
secure
want to
drive.
focus on the right side, which is the current design, the left side was the previous design.
If I keep, this left was easier. Oh my goodness.
Do you want to stand up?
Here,
You know what, I can do that.
yeah.
I'll stand. I'm not checked out on this plan. So, all right, so this is the secure drive.
Do me a favor, give me the pointer
All
because
right,
those
you'll
online
help follow?
cannot, I will help follow.
Very nice, thank you. So all vehicles enter in the secure area through a pair of double doors here. And then we have two different functions in here. We have a loading dock, and garbage collection and recycle collection that happens here. And then the secure vehicle sally port is here where they bring buses, vans and so forth. Not only bringing, but also taking when they transport and leave. There's this set of elevators here in this portion, the south part of the tower, that then connects into the secure detention facility. So the people that are coming into the lobby, the staff lobby here, have no interaction with people in custody at all. The only time that they do is if they've been processed for a visit. And that's on the fourth floor. And so when people in custody come to the fourth floor for that visit, that's also a very discreet space. They're brought to that area. That's the only area they have access to. And then when they're done with the visit, they get processed out and go back to the housing. Visitors go directly back down to the first floor. And that is probably, 2/3 of the visitors are contact in the same room, probably 1/3 are non-contact. So they're through, secure, air between the visitor and the person in custody. But so we have very distinct methods of getting all people to come and go from the.
Got it. And what is the average stay in the facility?
I don't know the answer to that.
Is it like 2 weeks or is it 2 months?
He's an architect, but we do have some of the people from DDC and I think you have Mock J people here, don't you?
I think unless someone from Mojave is online and could raise their hand, but it ranges.
But to me, it's much less of a concern if someone is there overnight or 2 days, the privacy of the neighbors, as opposed to if they're there for 2 years or 2 months, then it's a concern and it needs to
So
be
policy is they should be there for a year or less in this facility.
so long.
Yeah, I can tell you though, from national average, is that it's typically 2 week to 4 week average stay for people to come to. one of
They
these
stay at the same
free
cell.
trial facility, yeah.
So what is the person from DOC?
Sure, Addie, are you able to answer this question? What the average length of stay is for a person in custody?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can certainly find out, but yeah, as was stated, it can range. All pretrial detainees are there.
To me, it's important to know that because, I mean, it's like residences. When you do a temporary stay at hotel, it's very different than when you go there in Airbnb. Is there?
And that's more the nature of the facility. This is not a long-term prison. As there are other long-term
Yeah.
prisons in the state where people stay longer. That's not the mission or the nature of this facility. The stays are shorter here. It's all processed through here. And some can be quite short, but I think until Addie or others can maybe come back with better statistics, I think a year or less is gonna be really more typical.
Understood. Hang on, I will get.
It's a follow-up to yours, though, just.
So, let's, Alice.
Only just in terms of plan. So is this Is this the tallest, it's often called the tallest jail in the world or some such thing? Is that?
There's the detention city of the city of Chicago. They're gonna be roughly about the same.
Okay.
They're gonna be-
I suspect this will be of interest to every tourist that comes wondering, how did the tenth of the city's public budget go into this edifice? Is there a sort of an assessment of how tourists will be treated here that want to come see it, or is it just sort of a thing that says you can't enter?
Well, it's an interesting thing that you bring up because there will be tourists, but also there are a number of advocacy groups and others that we expect to come from around the world. I mean, we've
Right.
really seen global interest in these
Of course.
projects, not just the one here in Manhattan, but really all four of them. And so the visiting and so forth and processing, it actually has that in mind for the volume of people that may be coming through that. So they would be processed from the same area that we talked about before. However, as opposed to, say, older facilities that didn't have as robust lobbies, this is a much larger lobby. They can handle a large.
So it could, and it intends to accommodate for anybody who wants to come to look at it out of curiosity, whether it's a not-for-profit or a public school student, or is that sort of a conversation that has been had?
I don't know the details of how that, but I know that the DOC is happy to accommodate different groups with proper notice to actually see portions of the inside of the facility when they're interested.
And then just one more question, I mean, we probably have more, but just one more question when we have the plan up. One of the main aspects of this was very important is the idea of its connection to the courthouse. Can you
Right.
just review that on a plan that shows that connection? And is the bridge the only, or the most important connecting piece? That's,
It is.
okay, I don't know if you have
I
a, shows that.
we showed that bridge before and it is on the third level. So it
Okay.
connects with the third level of the courthouse. Now, there's two aspects of what happens with this vehicle Sally Port. So I'll point again, if you want to try.
But we don't have a third level plan to show.
So we don't have a third level
Okay.
plan. So it's up above here. But those same elevators I talked about before that connect in the secure side of the jail also connect to that third floor and then they go straight over to that.
This
to the
area?
Courthouse. Yes, in this particular, so the bridge is right about here. And then when you see this part
The
that
bridge
is
is in the middle as shown on the diagram.
Right.
The imagery.
where you got the red is close to where that bridge is. And then what we have here is also a New York NYPD Sally Port for the police cars, so they're not parking in the street. So they come and utilize that as well.
And the base of the bridge is 30 feet above White Street?
Could you go back and show the images of the base of the bridge? We have images.
we don't have images of the courthouse bridge today, I don't think. It is
What's the
higher,
bridge?
it's at level, sorry.
What's the bridge that you show?
Oh, that's all White Street Arcade.
It goes over White Street, so that connects the two towers.
Yeah.
Now, that bridge over to the court is in roughly the same level. Because they're both at about that third level, so they're
Yeah,
roughly
yeah.
at the same level.
Got it. Well, I'm gonna ask two questions about the architecture of it. One is that in the interior renderings, it seems like all the materials, it's concrete blocks or cinder blocks that you're showing in the renderings?
It's a mix. There are areas though that we have at high abuse areas that we need additional security. Those are concrete block with paint, with epoxy paint on those. We also have, in some cases, steel sheet, and then we have some cases where it's impact resistant and abuse resistant drywall.
Got it. And then the concrete blocks were picked, do they contribute to adaptability of this building in the future? Because I didn't hear much about that. in the business.
So the way the building is designed as far as adaptability for the future, it's designed with typical floor plates, very much like any other office building that we have in the area. It has an unusual occupancy since cells and other rooms are brought in. The cells are units that come in steel. They're placed in with some cutting and torching that can be pulled back out. Now, other walls that are concrete block in nature would still be able to be pulled out. The floors would be intact. That would be more work to do the demo on those. There's no question.
So the
but they're-
facade of the building needs to be demoed before if.
No,
No, the facade would not be, the facade would be intact. So actually, the way that we're building the building, we put up the whole facade around the outside, and then we move a lot of these components in. We'll leave one piece open perhaps, one piece open. And then we kind of move those components, and then we sort of build from the inside out, from the internal part.
So excuse my ignorance here. So if I wanna take one of these cells out, do I take it out and put it in the freight elevator and take it out and?
It's the same way that we're going to have a crane and a lift that brings them in, that could be reinstalled to take them back out if that was decided to actually take them back out. So
Got it.
But isn't the building envelope closed where you're putting them in now with the building envelope open? So how is that crane gonna?
You can remove a few panels.
yeah, you can remove, you can remove. some
Yes,
panels.
it's a Gurnwall system, so you can
Yeah, you
remove a
can.
few
Yeah,
panels.
it's curtain wall, yeah.
Okay. And then the fin system, it seemed like there are different widths, or I don't know, different.
Yes,
depths.
yes, they are. Yes, they are. So they are different widths. I'm sorry, I'm just
Is
looking
this
for
it?
the,
Oh, no, this is it.
um,
See
and
if you
that
do better.
is, no, it's not gonna work. Okay, I'm
All
gonna
right,
just
just tell
verbally.
me where you wanna go, because I can certainly stop.
One of the
share.
Yeah, just,
And
yeah,
then hit-
just one of the renderings. But the idea is, we've done an extensive study around the building for multiple different factors. Daylight, solar radiation and privacy, we showed you, we talked extensively, but the building, you can imagine, has very different daylighting components. If it's on the south facing the courthouse, right, there's quite a lot of shadow, so that's getting less daylight. You're on the north, again, you're getting less daylight because
This
just
one?
because.
Outside of.
Maybe one of the outside,
So that works, the one on the right.
yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
bad, yeah.
So on the north, again, you get less daylight just because of orientation of the sun. East and west get a lot of daylight, but then along with a lot of daylight, you get a lot of solar radiation. Upper parts of the building, same problem. Lot of daylight, actually sometimes too much daylight causing glare, and then also way too much solar radiation causing thermal discomfort. So the width of the panels, that's what they're adjusting for. So when the panels are much wider or the opaque part is much wider, it's rotating the glazing away from the solar radiation, reducing that and controlling the amount of daylight. When they're less, it's actually allowing for a lot more daylight. So there's equitable daylighting and occupant
And
comfort
does this
throughout.
contribute to the operation of the building being more?
Yes,
environment-
we did the analysis, we reduced solar radiation gain by 25%. So that actually does impact our sustainable strategies and the performance of the building.
Great. Looking to try and get back to where you have a greater amount of imagery for the exterior of the building.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so there you can see that right at the top, the panels are much more opaque as it comes down the building on the western side. They start to become much more open, again, just balancing that between the daylight and solar radiation.
Can I ask why you didn't continue the separation of the buildings in terms of the architecture to separate out the lower front from a higher front in both buildings? Why is it one building looks like a tall office building and the other one has the break to match with the contextuality of the neighborhood?
Yes, so that again goes back to that notion of responding to two different contexts, civic and the neighborhood. So to the south of the building is really where our civic context is. And again, we studied that. So if you look at, this is a perfect image. The criminal courthouse here, the 3 volumetric massing, they come straight down to the ground on Center Street. On Baxter Street, they do something very different. They have a podium attached to it. So the southern part of our building comes down to the ground, similar to the way the courthouse comes to the ground. And as the building moves, the northern tower is closer to the Chinatown and Little Italy context, and therefore the building steps and breaks scale down.
I guess my comment is responsive to when you look at the courthouses the way they are, there's a materiality change, even though there's not a physical lift, there's a materiality change along with the long, which gives you a separation, so more of an urban scale.
It's scale, yeah.
feel. And your building doesn't do that at all.
So it
goes
does
straight.
do that. So what maybe appears as lighting, the lowest band of the tall has a different materiality incorporated in there.
But it's not in line either with the building on one side or the building.
You know, it is very close to the granite change of the courthouse.
Is there a better image that could show?
An elevation would do that, but we don't have that, today, but that's what the intention is.
Got it, okay. Vincent, you had your hand up before you went.
I did have my hand up. I was worried about, because it looks like the lobby is a lot smaller than the original design. And as anybody here has been to the courthouses before, you see sometimes it gets kind of busy and people spill out into the street. So I'm worried about the same thing happening here when visitors coming in, people spilling out into the street and like, well, the sidewalk really.
So I don't think we've reduced the size of the lobby, the size of the lobby itself from the previous design to what was noticed.
The diagram kind of shows it that way, but I think that may have something more to do with that we had a lot on the sign early, but the
Yeah.
actual lobby that we're using is about the same size.
Oh, okay.
But also, Addie, I don't know if you want to speak to what DOC is looking into as far as scheduled visitation through an electronic online system, so that we're not looking at, having a whole bunch of people show up and needing to spill out into the street. Is there, Addie, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head, but yeah, we're moving towards a scheduling system, which would is hoping to mitigate the amount of like wait time and also traffic in the lobby. Yeah, just trying to streamline visits for people. And I did also want to just talk briefly about, I know Jeff had mentioned the public lobby. The public lobby is public. So that's where visitors will come in, and that's where anybody else who might need to use the facility, like the social services in the lobby, etc. But the upper parts of the building are secure. So we don't just that's secure, and people can come in through visits. But otherwise, kind of movement is limited in that part of the facility to the public, to respect and maintain the privacy of people in custody. So
Clearly, this diagram would indicate that the public lobby got smaller. Here,
Yes.
however, is what actually happened.
Yeah.
The pink also contain some areas where we're processing people in custody out of the facility. And the diagram on the right actually more accurately depicts that. So the part that is on the right, that is public lobby, that's kind of a U shape, and then it's got that piece attached to the left. That was always the assigned lobby part, and we've actually made that more distinctive than we did from the earlier diagram. So the actual assigned space for the lobby is relatively the same as it was for the public area.
Alice.
I'm not sure I'm asking me for you. I'm still curious about my earlier question about the sort of opportunity to educate the public of New York and the world at large who come to this building as to what it is. What is the jail? What is new here? How is it contending with criminal justice aspects of our, of our city? Will there be some sort of ability to do that in this lobby, or is it really kind of a walled off experience? We'll say, no entry pretty much unless you're, have made an appointment. Does anybody have that answer?
Yes. I think that's a question for GOC, and that might be something that still needs to be looked into and explored as we get further down the line, looking about operationalizing the building, like how that could be accommodated.
Thanks.
yeah,
So I have questions because IBO did a study on the borough-based how long people were incarcerated, awaiting trial and things like that. And over the course of a 9-year period, the amount of days then someone who's applied for mental health treatment in its current state or the previous 160 was over 140 days compared to those who were not flagged, which is somewhere over 60. This is going back 3 years, but the numbers pretty much, increased 50% overall in the last 9 years, not going down. Since the announcement of this building was made, everything is increasing in population, increasing in duration. But what we don't see is a change in necessarily how the treatment on the inside. Everything is told to us that those who are inside, but we know from what we were told originally that the mental health treatment beds should need more of everything and a different treatment. So can you explain in here how that's reflected in the usage, the design, the plates and the floors, how it's laid out and how that relates back. I've got like 4 questions. So that's one that I'm looking for. 2, on Acres, it says you're in the floodplain. If you look at 124, 125 White Street, under the city maps of Acres, it says you are still in the floodplain. And everywhere else in the city is building to 2050 or 2080. I'm a little confused at how you're not in the floodplain anymore. So I saw what you shared, but that's not what it shows on the New York City map. So it's just a statement. I just need somebody to explain. It's fine if you decided not to build to that level, you feel it's not gonna flood, but are you putting other barriers?
Tammy's point, though, also in your earlier scheme, you showed resiliency walls on the entrance to that, and I was always curious how those were going to be adapted, and then the next meeting, we don't need them anymore.
So I'm not sure what the date of the Acres map is. The latest. Okay, so they're not correct then. So the latest maps that which is the regulation of New York City that we're getting from the city, we're working very closely with them, including CRDG and the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. And so what we're showing you in terms of the floodplains is the latest data and the latest guidelines/rules that we must follow. In the previous iteration, yes, the floodplains were designated higher, but that have been modified, not for this project, generally around all of New York City. The city itself has run the numbers again, and that's where we're at.
Is the building able to be adapted if it were to show going back to the?
Yes, absolutely. Because, so as I said, 14.3 is our base flood elevation, and that takes us all the way up to 2080s. That's the 50-year lifespan of the building. There are very few vulnerable points that are near the 14.3, but should you need to come in with flood barriers that are temporary, that are deployable, that are very absolutely possible.
This
Without
building has
compromising
a
the building.
50-year lifespan.
50-year lifespan.
That's what you're designing for?
Yes.
That is my question. Why would all this be money, all this money, billions of dollars be spent for a 50-year lifespan? That completely defies
It
logic.
doesn't mean that after 50 years, the building is suddenly obsolete or defunct, but that is sort of New York City standard for all
Yeah, but
buildings.
you have to understand that we have had a pattern here in this community where only about 40-some years ago, the last building, jail, was built here and it was torn down. So you have to understand that you're very sensitive to that fact. And it's caused a lot of harm, environmental harm to the community. You have buildings demolished and now be built again. And to think that this is only for 50 years potentially, that it could be taken down again and rebuilt again, I will not be here. So, I'm not speaking for myself, but for others who will be here, it just seems egregious to me. And why is that? I have to understand that. And why is it not being built, or if it has to be built for a longer period of time?
Do we know what is the average lifespan of a building, let's say, Class A building that gets built in New York City? Do they give it 50 years? Does EDC give?
We could look into that and get back to it. I don't think anyone here is able today has that style. But we can check in with,
It's more than
EDC or
50.
other agencies and back to you.
But you didn't get your question.
I didn't get my
Yeah,
question.
could you have somebody
No,
to acknowledge her question? To be here.
In terms, I'll put it this way, in terms of the structural system, in terms of the curtain wall, in terms of energy saving, the building will last longer than 50 years. It is designed for longer than that, and it's designed to be adaptable for use. I think where, looking in the future, how the policy, the DFC is using the building, that will have an effect. Now, we are attempting to build it, and we are designing to build it in a way that it can be adapted. So cells in the rooms could be removed without, in the past, those cells are very integrated with the structure. They're not build the structure, the cells come in, and so the rooms come in. So it has better adaptability. But those other systems that we're utilizing are really meant to be resilient beyond 50 years.
You guys are all HOK, right? You guys built
We're-
amazing buildings. How long are your buildings lasting?
We've been around for about 65 years, so
Yeah.
some of those are still are still up from day one.
Can I share what I pulled off Acres today? That's, one of the things I'm a little confused about. So I just want to show you, just so you understand what I looked at, if you can tell me how this is what I pulled up today at the meeting of Acres, 125, that's where the pin is dropped right here. Preliminary flood rates, moderate wave action, 2050, 2080, and that's what I got. And that's why I was a little confused by the map that you showed, because this is what we're working with for conversations on the west side, and lower Manhattan overall around the Battery, and around the east side was everything based on 2050s. And this is what I saw online. And I'm not the most technological, genius, trust me here. I just go by what the boxes I clicked.
Do you know the requirements of light blue, green, dark?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking, I'm looking for a legend
Is
there that,
light?
yeah, I'm looking for a legend that tells me what levels this is measuring, like what height this is measuring the flooding at, what the base is, so I don't necessarily see the information to be able to.
It's just because we know
Not
that,
necessarily, I don't know what they are, right?
I get it. I mean, we just know that there was in the first examples, like Alice said, there was flood mitigation planned on the outside of the building. So here that you none is an interesting change that we'd like to understand more about.
We can get you a little bit more information on New York City's guidelines and what the basis of using the FEMA maps versus why the information of Acres is still showing what was outdated. So
Because I assume that they have given you a map which is 2D and not shaded, so zero interpretation.
That's right.
It's there.
Yes.
Laura Starr.
Hi, so I have a few questions about the landscape. So the arcade it's not on structure, correct?
It is on structure.
It's on structure? There's basement,
Yes.
what's underneath the arcade?
Cellar levels.
Okay. For sure. Then, like, do you have enough, so in that case, do you have enough soil for the trees? Because,
Yes, we have, the seawall height and then an additional 2 to 3 feet below that.
okay. And who's going to maintain all the plants?
The city is currently coordinating across agencies to determine who's gonna be ultimately responsible for the maintenance, but there will be a designated party that is responsible for maintaining the public realm and fencing.
Okay, it looks like a lot of planting for what the city can maintain in my experience. That's just, I mean, it looks pretty, but I think I'm concerned it's just going to be bare ground. So, I mean, what I was hoping is what I was thinking would be good if it was on grade would be to just drop the trees in the ground and to create a bosque of trees and not have so many perennials and shrubs and things there, because I think that they're just going to die.
We looked at that option too, earlier studies, but we had the cellar for.
But you could just drop the trees into the cellar, right, into tree wells, and which we do all the time in roof gardens, and then the trees could just be flush with the paving, and you wouldn't have to worry about, and you could just do you could do typical benches, and you wouldn't have to worry about maintaining, about having all those bare planting beds there, especially in the shade.
So below White Street Arcade, the first cellar level is actually staff support areas. So there's significant programmatic requirements that we can't interrupt with wells like you typically can if it was a parking structure. And so, like Autumn said, we've taken a look at that previously, trying to make the planting flush, but that does not work with the heights of the cellar levels and the program that needs to be accommodated.
But is there a chance that you would raise the first floor of the building per the flood question? That you're going to change the
No,
first floor elevation?
No, there, we don't anticipate that.
Oh.
The first floor mostly of the building is actually significantly high. The lobbies are at 16.5 feet currently.
Okay.
So we don't anticipate that.
Okay. Well, assuming you keep the planters, are they going to be irrigated?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think anything you can do to simplify the planting design is probably wise. Just
49%. Yeah, agreed.
yeah. Okay, that's it.
And can I ask about the art? I mean, the art was a well-beloved and seriously thought about piece. Most of the art was public-facing art. In what you showed us, only a section of it would be public-facing, the rest would be interior and not public-facing. Is there a way to take a look at what you're doing and have public art that was all public-facing go back to being public-facing?
So
I'm less concerned about.
So of the 7 pieces that we shared with you today, 6 of them are public facing, 5 of them are actually on the exterior. So either within the public realm or we showed in the architecture, which is all street facing. One of them is in the public lobby, again, public facing. The only one that is associated with a visitor waiting area is the Enlightenment piece that used to be part of the visitor entrance in the previous detention center. So keeping that historic connection to the visitor area is why that is now part of the visitor waiting area. So that's the.
And what do you anticipate the public would be doing walking into the lobby of the borough-based jail? Considering you can, I say this with all due respect, we have had nothing but fences put up around the federal jail, around access. We lost Maya Lynn's access to her artwork whenever there's any kind of a potential concern. I don't see, quite frankly, any way as you look ahead that that is actually a public lobby. If you have no business in that building, you will not be allowed in that building. I mean, it's just, I'm usually trying to be really positive about the potentials of public realms and like, we're gonna be able to do this and the jail pop will go down and everything will be good. I started out this process really super positive on like the great slides that were shown about the potentials and the shrinking of the jail population. We're not there. Fast forward to where we are today in life society. And this will not be a building that's open to the public. I don't care what you're telling me today, but the reality of security will prevent this from being a public facing building, other than these storefronts that you have that are going to be public. So I'm very concerned when we're taking a look that the plans that you're making and everything that you're talking about is public flow. I see White Street potentially being closed off, quite frankly, with security bars and gates and things like that. So I'm a little concerned, honestly, when we're looking at this and we're saying the site plan will work this way. I think we'll have access to the community retail space, but I don't see the public lobby being public facing. And I see the White Street crosswalk because they don't want protesters being fenced off. I mean, that's the realities of what we're living with today. So I kind of need you to tell me a plan A and a plan B, because I don't see a plan B. And I'd like to understand what the security would say to this.
I mean, I don't think their brief was to have a plan B, so it probably goes back to whoever.
Keeping the White Street Arcade open as a public passageway. In fact, we have repeatedly got some comments and feedback from some members of the community who would like to see it gated off. And we made the statement that is not the intention. This is not going to be gated off. This is going to be maintained as a public corridor and a public open right of way, and it's retail spaces that are in that ground floor. So the intent, like that's.
I mean, to
what the concern
Tammy's
is there.
point, all of our public spaces
Sure.
around that area are closed off with really ugly fences that no one wants to go close to. So, I mean, why don't they address that before coming back and saying that we're spending millions or billions of dollars building a new building that's open to everyone, and we know it's gonna get fenced off because what they have already provided around there, it's all fenced off.
I can't speak to what's being fenced off on the other, I know you like us to address that with the other
Alright.
properties, that's outside the purview of this. It's a comment is that piece of artwork that is currently inside the public lobby may not actually be publicly accessible. I think we can take that back and discuss it with the city and see if there's.
It's two parts. I'd like to hear from a security expert that I'm sure you're working with. Because what we have is temporary and permanent from the battery and security from National Park Service for statue cruises to the courthouse when they had the gentleman from Venezuela and that locked down the entire area, right? So including every public space that was around. So I actually would really like to hear what we're really gonna be looking at.
So the intent of the way that we plan the building is that that the security does happen internal in the facility. So we've actually, we have blast resistance around the lower level. Some of those times that you see fence show up at some of these older buildings, it's because the older buildings don't have adequate infrastructure to accommodate kind of terror attack or whatever those things are. This building is actually designed to do so. And so when you actually process visitors in and so forth, we actually have secure hardened area there also, within the building. So because we're using anti-blast on the outside, which is also more hardened on the outside, it doesn't require a fence to protect the building or protect its occupants. That also happens on the inside of the facility. So the goal is to have more security requirements met inside and not have to move it outside and not have to move our perimeter back outside of the building with fencing. And
So when I have 500 people on White Street protesting,
I don't know how the DOC is going to react to that. I can't predict how they're going to react to that. What I can say, though, is the building is designed to handle that.
But aren't
Physical.
all buildings in downtown Manhattan have some sort of anti-blast on the ground floor? Right? They do have.
Newer
Newer
ones
do.
do.
The newer the building is, it definitely does.
Yeah,
Some
they
of the
do,
older
so
ones
it's
don't.
nothing unique that we're doing here.
Correct.
But so let's say it's not even a terrorist attack, it's like the PDD's trial.
Whatever those things are.
Yeah, all the streets were a mess. Yes, PDD, right?
it was, yeah. So I mean, this is what we actually, it's beyond, I'm sure you're blast for glass, not one piece of art, but it's the reality and the understanding that we have an entire outdoor sculpture garden of myelin, right?
Mhm.
All right, which is in the public space, but because it's near the building and they don't want protesters, they have fenced off the entire area. That it doesn't even make a difference if you have a New York City ID. I have New York City employees asking me why things were closed off if I knew. So I look at this and I say, I would really like to understand, before you get down this road a little bit further, Lauren, is really, it's not about how beautiful he designs the space with his team. It is really about what DOC has made with NYPD counterterrorism for their Plan B and how that would look for the public space.
Okay.
No,
These are, yes,
and
and
that-
I understand where you're coming from. These are, I think, operational questions that go beyond the scope of what the device.
it's not.
can-
If you don't
No.
design for them, then the public
We can
loses.
take this back to DOC and PD and have a conversation and have people come back at the next meeting to address these questions, but it's beyond the purview of what HOK is able to answer here today. You're asking about what fencing PD might put up in the future in HO
It's-
protests. So
I-
again,
but
we'll
I
take
think
this
that's,
back. I hear your questions. They're valid, they're relevant, absolutely. I think we need to take it back to the city and come back to you guys.
Great, thank you for that. I have a very HOK related question about the artwork that you're bringing inside. Those are bronze
Panels.
panels, 3D panels, and they're meant, I mean, I don't know, you guys have touched base with the artists. They're meant to be outdoor and get a patina and kind of change colors, right? Wouldn't that, when bringing them inside, will stop that process of gracefully aging the metal to get the patina that it needs, right?
So the metal is already patina, and aged, they've been outside for a very long period of time. They're going to be restored, but not sort of scrubbed all the way off. They're going to, have, coatings on it that preserves its character. Bringing it as a element that greets people coming into the public lobby has a lot to do with how it was incorporated with the entrances previously, so that relationship is really important. in terms of what the historic interpretation of the art was, similar to the visitor waiting spaces. But like, as I said, we have an art conservator on board that,
The artist has blessed the locations.
yes, well, they are working with us very, very closely. And everything we've presented to you, obviously, this is going to be developed. This is just initial proposals right now. We're taking all feedback. But the artists are very much involved.
Yes, with the artwork, I wanted to remind you all that the artwork was defaced, it was ruined, everything. The nitty was put there 40 years ago. So what are you doing to make sure that these pieces of artwork, that the pavers will not be defaced and they will be maintained? That is my question. That should be built into whatever design, whatever plans you have to make sure that this artwork is respectfully there and kept and maintained properly. That's. Is there any?
Good question. I think especially with the paving design in particular, we know that was really sensitive with the community and last time it was installed, and then shortly thereafter it was painted over with parking lines, and that space essentially became a parking lot. So the arcade has the design, there are bollards on the outside that will physically prevent this from becoming used as a parking space in the future and facing that way. And then as far as just larger, the broader question of who's maintaining the public realm, as I guess I said earlier, the city is currently working across agencies to determine who's ultimately going to be responsible for that. But we hear you. We also really want long-term for what you've seen in these renderings today to be what it continues to look like with the large plantings and, the artwork and everything looking as it looks in these renderings. And so the city is taking the maintenance requirements very seriously. We'll come back and hopefully, have an answer for you sooner rather than later.
Was this program, like, I don't know where the inception of it was, but when this jail was introduced, there was an assumption of where the numbers are gonna go, the use it's going to be. Are the numbers trending with those assumptions or they're not? Because I think Tammy brought up, there was an assumption that the numbers are gonna come down and taper off. Are you guys tracking those, seeing that if the numbers are tapering, it makes sense to build it. If they're not trending, maybe it doesn't make sense to build it. Maybe they need to change gears and come up with something else that address the need today.
So these are good questions for the city to respond to, in particular for the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, which is responsible for not only tracking the numbers, but also implementing the policy strategy to bring those numbers down. I know in the past, a couple of years ago, we did have a special presentation from MOCJ to the community board about the policies that they were putting into place, and watching. I think workshop number 2 gave quite a long explanation. So they're not here with us today, but we can have them come back or potentially even do a separate community board presentation to talk about this in particular.
But we've seen it, and it's part of the intent here, but also we've seen it historically. The building is part of the solution. The way that the question came up earlier, and we didn't really answer it about therapeutic treatment in the facility, access to care. It's going to be superior in these facilities. And so in fact, the buildings actually are part of the solution of actually doing it.
We want the buildings to be part of the solution, but as
Correct.
so far, we're still trying to see the
It's still
solution.
in the old place. And some of those things were exacerbated by COVID and some other things. So there have been some anomalies in population, and communities across the United States had some expectations of some dropping. It hasn't really happened in the same way. Old facilities and still some residuals from COVID have had effects.
Got it. Jason, and then.
I know
John.
I saw a lot of people here from the public, so I don't want to say that if everybody's gone,
No, Jan's
okay,
going.
whoever, but then I think we should hit up the public, so, and then,
We
right?
are hitting up the public.
Great, okay, hit it up, let's do it.
Thank you. I just want to recap about the art. Let's remember, for everyone who doesn't know this, the artist had to sue in order to get that artwork even looked at, talked about, discussed, and into this plan. So this was forgotten artwork. This was trampled by the DOC. It was poorly maintained. They attached TV antennas to an artist's work. They drove over it. They painted over it. They did not maintain it. So the question about maintenance is very well placed. I also want to talk about, so as soon as you hear about who's maintaining it, we would love to know. I think it should be done soon. The artists are 90 years old. So as much as you're consulting with them, consult quickly. They are very much a part of this. They have decided to become a part of the new iteration because that's how deeply they felt hurt by this process. So we as a community are very hurt by the way the DOC has treated us and has treated this building initially. I also want to say that, you know, these iterations that you've been looking at in both the larger meeting and in this one is 30 years from now. That's how long it takes for honey locust trees that are used on the sidewalks of New York to grow. So this is really what we're going to be looking at when they build the jail.
Or they can buy a mature tree.
So, well, I don't, that's not in the plan as far as I know. What are going to be done are 3-inch saplings that are going to take 30 years to grow, will all be gone by then. So we're just looking for you to be honest with us as we start presenting these plans that show beautiful, crowned out, very mature, 20-foot high by 30-foot wide trees. Be cognizant that this is not what we're getting as a community. This is what they showed the previous iterations of my generation when they were there, showing them beautiful renderings of the previous jail that only lasted 50 years, and the one before that was 50 years, and this one is 50 years. So be honest, don't deceive the public. At least put this to say, when you're all dead, this is what it'll look like. At least be honest about it. So I think that there's importance of how the sunlight hits the sidewalk if we're going to talk about design. If we're going to talk about what the jail actually looks like, how about we see the jail and not the trees? And if we do see trees in 2032, they're going to be 3-inch saplings. So please represent them that way.
But we don't know that.
That's
They
what-
they have not said that.
Well, in the renderings, they're not showing you the date. The date of this fully fleshed out tree line will be about 25 years from now.
If they go from like the baby size, but
No,
there
that's
are,
not true.
there are nurseries that they sell
Are you
plants
doing
that
that?
are mature.
We are working with Parks Department and looking at potentially field growing the trees ahead of time.
And do you have the budget for this, to put that many trees that you have in the rendering, or is this just something to show us while we're at meetings? Because our experience has shown that based on the previous iterations of how we've been treated as a community, this is not the way it's gonna go. I think all we have to do is look at Collect Pond to understand that when that was built a few feet away from this, and we look at it now, it's essentially an open sewer. It does not have water features as it was already planned. So we don't have to apologize for being skeptical about what's being presented here. And at the same time, we have data that has been missing that we have been asking for with air quality control, with air monitoring, and there's huge gaps. So what we're asking for the community, these things are all pretty when you show them. I understand the amount of money that you're paid to make those renderings. They're not honest. They're not honest to us. They're not honest about what it is on the first day when these jails are finished. The same way Collect Pond was presented, the same way the Tombs was presented in the 1970s. We've been all through this. So maybe we can start something unorthodox with this project and start labeling what it looks like when you're done in 2032, 2035, 2037, however long it takes. And then really contextualize those beautiful renderings with trees to let us know that that's not going to be what we get. Can we be honest about that? And also just reflect the fact that the graphs that were shown to us from the previous contractors about our air quality were written in such a way that it was impossible for the public to understand those graphs. So there's a pattern here that we're very tired of, coming to meetings and being deceived in pretty much every front. And I just want to one last. We've been at this for 6 years. To sit at a table with 20 people in the room and several people online, and when you ask what's the average stay of a person who's incarcerated, we don't have an answer. That's very deceptive. Everyone here who's in this project has that answer. So don't withhold information from us when we ask. Don't say, I'll get back to you. That is something that we have talked about for 6 years. It's disgraceful to not bring that information into the room.
Thank you.
Can you answer one question? Who is, because biggest conversation we have about budget with New York City right now is about the cuts to the Parks Department. So when you are talking about the greenery, is this paid for by DOC? Or is the expectation that it's Parks Department? I mean, I know that sounds like a strange place to ask, but that is super critically important to understand who's buying it, who's installing it. And then obviously who's maintaining, but if.
Well, this is all part of the BBJ budget. This is not coming out of a separate budget from parks.
Thank you.
And, sorry, I'm sorry to the HOK. I don't think your comments were directed to any of the architects who are at the table. I just think it's a bigger issue that you're trying to address, which,
Actually, I am. I've been at this a long time, doing a lot of
Well,
meetings, but I just want to set the stage that when we're looking at fully grown trees, that is not what we're getting in 2032.
the
I
architect
think that's
is
fair.
not buying the job. The architect designs it and they have another department who buys it. So once that other department comes to this table, we can tell them why did they buy smaller trees, but I think
But
they have
maybe
been
they-
generous enough.
Exactly.
Maybe they can answer the question.
Respectfully, these are images shown to the general public. This was a couple of months ago, a few weeks ago. This was shown to the general public. The general public's consumption of these images are going to be that's what we're getting. And what I want to make sure everyone knows is that there should be indicators that these fully crowned out trees that are, at least 12 inches thick are not what we're getting. We have to be clear when we present information to the public.
We're gonna put it in the resolution that what we get is as close to the images that we have seen.
It would be really
Right.
refreshing to see.
Yeah, we will
Maintenance-
definitely put it.
maintenance And who's gonna maintain it. As Laura had said, I'm so happy that Laura was asking those questions because as an architect on this board, she understands that. We've been down this road and we understand that Mark J. and everyone involved in the previous tombs that I had to live through has been abysmal. So we make no apologies for being skeptical, but we're advising you, don't try this again.
I just want to know what's the
Can you
latest?
please introduce yourself?
Yeah, Carl Glassman from Tribeca and Trim. What's the latest estimate on the cost of this project?
This is $3.76 billion.
3.7.
Yes. That's the budget that is set. That's what I'm saying, so I have to say that.
Do we have anyone online?
We have lots of people online, but nobody's put their hands up.
Rosa?
When is this going to be completed?
2032.
Okay,
Early 2032.
okay, and because I am actually very curious about the public space and as Tammy alluded, we don't seem to have a strong maintenance plan when it comes to public spaces in this city and funding for it. And since that area, that courtyard or White Street is going to essentially be the only public space, although once you're finished in 2032, I will go and try to use the public restroom just as a test. But really, I don't think anybody will. Like, nobody's gonna know that they can go inside and that this lobby is public and if there are restrooms that they can utilize them. And I do question whether or not the public will be allowed in at all if they don't have a purpose to be visiting somebody in that structure.
Where are the public restrooms? Did you see them?
They said that there are restrooms in the public lobby and the public lobby is public, right? So theoretically, I could go and use the restroom if I needed
Yeah,
to.
there's no planned barrier. If somebody were to come in the lobby, there's no planned barrier that, let's say at the reception desk,
Yes.
doesn't allow you to go further into the line. So there's no barrier.
This is it's a good question, one with the questions about.
Right, so I guess my question though is that with any public space, if it's not maintained on a very consistent basis, if it doesn't have funding set aside for its maintenance, if it can get very uncomfortable very quickly. So while it's wonderful that there's a capital plan to create public space, unless it is also accompanied by a maintenance plan and a solidly funded maintenance partner with, then that won't happen. So how are we going to ensure, how are you going to ensure that this remains a welcoming, public, openly accessible space? Like,
Agreed, and the maintenance questions are actively under consideration by the city right now, and we will be able to come back to you.
to me, that sounds like there's no budget and there's no designated person or organization, which means that it's going to go to shit in a week.
Again, we not open tomorrow, right?
Right,
We're Working on this for the
right.
2032 completion date, so please, just, we're asking everyone a little bit of patience. We are, City is actively working on this question. We will come back to you before the building is open. There will be a maintenance plan in place.
With fully funded maintenance plan. 'Cause that's the problem.
I'm just curious about the storefronts. How many square feet of retail will you have? And, who gets the money for those storefronts?
So currently, there is a commitment for a total of 20,000 square feet of community and commercial space. I believe it's 5,960 square feet of that are designated retail or commercial spaces, which you see in the plan. Those are actually going to be managed by Chunk Pack. And the reason for that is that those are replacing spaces that were previously part of the Chunk Pack building and tenants of Chunk Pack that were displaced when we were dismantling the previous jail. So it's a commitment that the city has made that we are giving those spaces back to Chunk Pack. So it's 5,960, yes. Yes. These numbers like.
And they get the rent as well?
Yes, that money would go and be managed by Chunk Pack. That doesn't go back to the city.
There's a question. Please. Can you,
I'm facing clarification where the parking garage exit, access and location is, it's all pointed out.
Sure, it's right up here. Jill, we're gonna need you to stand and speak up a little louder for the, sorry.
I would like some clarification where the parking garage in access and exit out is on this plan. The 100 space parking garage, am I correct, it's 100 space? Cars,
100 spaces below
and
grade.
it's fully expected to be occupied 100 per day daily.
For offense, we need,
Yes, so we're expecting 100 cars to come in and out daily.
from where?
That's what I like clarification.
We'll show you. So this area plan, so this is where cars are coming in and out.
And right next to that is what? That's gray space to my left or to your right. What is that space there?
Here,
Yeah.
that's Chunk Pack building.
Okay, and then what is to the right? Is that a lobby, staff lobby?
Staff lobby is here, so this is where the staff will come and go.
What is the square footage distance between those ins and out between Chunk Pack and likewise the staff lobby?
Say the total distance from here to here, is that what you're asking?
Yes, for that.
It's at least two, it's more than 2 lanes of traffic plus another booth. It's somewhere probably in the range of about 50 feet.
50 feet.
Yeah.
And what is that total square footage across from the White Street at there to the Chunk Pack? No, from this. to
This
that.
is on Baxter, correct?
No, this is on
No,
center.
That part from the White Street to the left, what is your total square footage?
Square footage or distance?
Okay, so, yeah, distance. From this
Yeah, if you-
linear, from here to here, what is the total distance? You said this is 50 square feet, so what is this?
Sorry about, yeah, so that's
I think
probably
it's
50
quite
linear
significant.
feet, and then that's
This is 50 linear feet? You
Yeah,
said,
about
and then
50.
what is this from here?
It's quite
It's like
significant.
200.
White Street is 50, right?
Okay,
If
so
I
White-
was just
White
doing
Street's
that,
50, so it's 200.
like about 200 200 feet, sorry.
So it's 1/4 of that is gonna be the parking.
No, you can look at that. It's
About
not
15,
quite.
20%, I would say.
Yeah, about 20%.
Almost 1/4.
Yeah.
Okay, so then so that means it's very tight between the lobbies going in and out. You're basically stacking in 200 square feet, 50 feet of parking garage, staff lobby, public entrance, and a public sidewalk. So what is the maintenance of those cars coming in and out? Is there gonna be a traffic light? So when people walking Center Street, I know this is a curb cut. So who is gonna monitor and maintain that? And then right next to it's the senior center where people are coming in and out.
That's a good question.
So the
That's a
entrance,
good question. I don't have the answer totally on how that's being maintained. Go ahead.
I was gonna say Chunk Pack's entrances are on the other
Yeah,
side. There
they're-
is the entrance here.
There's
an exit.
They have
They have an exit
And they
right
also
there.
have a health center right there. If you've been there recently, you know that.
The corners.
Pipe is there. It is right near the Canal Street. And I understand this goes underground. So when they enter out, they have to push out fast to get up to underground. My question again, how is that going to be monitored and maintained with
pedestrians coming in and out, in and out, in and out that building, tightly spaced with a senior center and a health center right there.
Again, I think this is more, Jeff, this is more of an operational question.
Right.
Or-
Actually, no, because you're not showing curb cuts on this. So I think you guys, the curb cuts to your parking lot are not shown in this drawing, so I think you.
You need to come back
an
more
official-
detail.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of plans, it's just diagrammatical
Yeah.
things showing what you asked. And I'm sorry, it's getting very late, so,
Vicky,
I think-
you are well versed in this because this is part of this is your job. And I appreciate that. This is the board members and the public consuming information for the first time.
right?
I understand it's late, but we have to be able to
Okay,
take down the questions, be able to get the information. We just don't see it every day like everybody else does.
We
Yeah,
can
and
go
I-
back with a more detailed
Yeah,
plan showing
exactly,
specific
right.
Because
curb
this
cuts
is a
there, but I think
response,
part of the
right.
project
these are-
also seem to be operational with how
Sure.
like, would there be a guard or somebody flagging?
These are-
it out?
these
So I
are-
think it's a dual
Yeah.
part question, and let us come back to you with a more detailed plan as well as an operational response.
When you come back, he mentioned the word booth. So we would need to understand, is that on the street? Is it on the sidewalk? Is it interior?
It's within the footprint of the building, but we can show you in better detail how cars are metered in and metered out and how the booth looks.
And yes, and please have someone from security with you because an architect's plans are beautiful and NYPD's security decisions might not be. Jan has his hand up.
Just one small question connected to this. We experience a lot of ambulances, formerly on Baxter Street and now crowding on Center Street. And now that one lane has been taken because of this job site, one lane has been taken over. It used to be a full lane on Center Street. There's even more of a crunch. You are going to experience ambulances going to this building. They are going to go into that same spot.
The ambulances actually come in this
In this
lane, so they won't be coming in this one. They'll be coming in this lane.
And I want to dovetail about what Jill was saying, that some of the pedestrian conflicts that occur with people going in and out of spaces that are ramps. My garage is a ramp. I understand that there's limited visibility. At the same time, ambulances are ambulances, and we have to be cognizant of how that's going to conflict with pedestrians. So if you could drill down on that, those two entrances, that would be very good.
We'll show you more detail. What I can say is that the ramp doesn't actually end here at the end. It actually flattens here, so the ramp actually is further into the building. So we're cognizant of the fact we don't want people just coming in or going in or coming out that way. So we do have a flattened area, but we'd be happy to come with a more detailed diagram and talk about those operations in the future when we can be prepared and be able to show this better.
But the site plan is important. How people, the neighbors get in, I think that's super important for us to review. And sorry, and these are 100 parking spots or they're stackers?
No, they're not stackers.
They're individual.
Yeah, individual.
Do you have any?
I'd love to just suggest we start to write the resolution is to begin to include what is going to be, or is that too early?
No, we
Okay.
just said the same thing.
I'm sorry, okay.
I was
Then
just telling
legally.
Tammy,
Oh, you didn't say it publicly because I was saying, I don't think.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I would,
Call the question.
well, no, we're
we
not
need to
calling
go through the
questions.
detail.
Well, let's move into that session.
Resolution.
Let's just move into
Yeah,
that
move
session.
into it.
Close
Thank
with
you,
the other
Jason.
session, so
Yeah.
there's not a crosstalk
Yes.
situation.
So we need-
Anna from the public has her hand up. Okay. Anna? You can unmute yourself. And if you are on a phone, you can hit *6. Anna? Maybe she stepped away, her hand.
Okay, let's move into
Let's
that
keep it
session.
all
Move into that section. Thank you.
Session
You can
before
do
we're doing
without
business
this.
here.
Absolutely.
Carl likes that.
Okay, so we need the site plan. Are we going to pass a resolution without getting the complete information?
Hello?
Let's
Hello?
scaffold.
Oh, hi, Anna, you had your hand up?
Yeah, can you hear me now? I couldn't unmute before. I am aghast to hear that the building has a 50-year lifespan. If I were to buy a house I'm not buying it. I can't believe that we are spending this amount of money. And I would like the architect to tell us what elements have such a short lifespan and can't it be designed for a longer lifespan, like for 100 years?
That wasn't the, I mean, that was the brief that was given to the architects. That's my understanding. It's not their building that lasts. They're saying that their building can last longer, but the brief that was given to them to design to was for only 50 years.
Sure, that's accurate. That's a
But
good
what
start.
elements,
We
what
don't like that
elements would be,
We don't like the light.
It's just getting the same thing is getting repeated over and over.
Let's start there.
And
We don't like the lifespan of the building. And then
exactly.
who has the next big comments after that?
Well, stop for a second, Jason. Anna, do you have anything else?
yes, we know the problem, there are a lot of problems on Rikers, and that's why, everybody wants it closed. What in this design helps, solve those issues?
And do you have any other questions, or is that your last one?
Um, well, hopefully, the parking spaces will, relieve some of the parking on the streets for the public. That was my last one.
All right, thank you very much. I'm gonna send you back to being an attendee.
I'd like to suggest that we have in a resolution, though it's being written, looks like to the Public Design Commission, which will with very little to comment on much of what we're discussing, that we include in this some of the things that you've promised to come back to. For example, the criminal justice review, how is this building really going to be adaptable to a much elevated population? So just to have that as one of the returns that we get. The flood discussion is another one, the changes in the jail population and the adaptability for another use, a little bit more detail on that. These were all three things that I think you all said you could do. I think it would be helpful to the public. So just something to put in there.
Yeah.
That's not a PDC.
Talk about the park a lot after that. So if we could just come to agreement, maybe in this room, not exactly what the sentence is about the art, but something about protecting the art and how it was taken to shit before it was ever put, and,
Maintenance of the art.
paying a little bit of respect to that.
Maintenance.
And how is it gonna go forward? Is it in the right place? Is it getting the right sunlight? There were a lot of comments, which I'm not sure I could capture right at this moment, but I think have a line for that we can
Great.
expand upon when we're not necessarily all here.
Understanding the site plan, entrance of the parking, pedestrian, all your population to the building in comparison to your neighbors is super important. And also, if there's consideration for a protest or a high profile case going on in the jail, where are people gonna go? Where the reporters are gonna go? Where are the people who are just there to get a glimpse of P. Diddy are gonna go? Like,
Yeah, it's true. It's a problem
It's-
now in the federal place and it could become a bigger problem.
so
higher
if,
jail.
if it's an overall site plan that kind of addresses where the population moves or, relocates when
So,
things
right,
happen.
so we'll follow up on how, many of these operation questions as to how the lobby would be used, and they have obvious architectural implications, yeah.
The
Sounds
maintenance of the plants, and if the plants are gonna come, the trees are gonna come mature,
The public space.
and who waters them?
I have one question in relation to this is there any relationship with, you said you met with Landmarks in April? Somebody said that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Is there any discussion of the landmarking of the building, the Supreme Court building, which was something that this board has asked for over 10 years ago?
Courthouse,
The criminal courthouse, yeah. Is there
which
some-
is eligible for landmark.
Right, and had an RFE that was recognized.
Yeah,
by
we
the-
can't
They didn't
comment
talk.
on the status of where that is.
There's no conversation with that.
So we're just treating the courthouse as a building that's significant, that's eligible to landmark. So any aspect of it is treated through that process.
Can we just ask you to summarize that meeting that you had with Landmarks? What was it about? Was it about the whole design, or?
So it's mostly focused on landmark components. So for example, where the courthouse bridge is going to meet the courthouse, right? So we're designing it so that the aperture that is currently in the courthouse itself, that's the aperture we're working with. We're not enlarging that aperture. That's where we're meeting it so that we're preserving as much of the historic fabric of the courthouse. The previous bridge used to intersect the courthouse there. So
Sure.
that's what the aperture.
Okay.
So that's a part that LPC is looking at carefully. We've, shown them details of how we're connecting to the courthouse. The other aspect of that was the art conservation. We shared the art with them. We shared the cornerstone with them. And then we also previously shared with them how the Sallyport gates are going to be meeting the courthouse building.
Is this always a public meeting, something that anyone in the public could? follow up
No,
on?
because it's not a landmark building, it's only eligible for landmark. LPC is advisory agency, but anything that has to do with the courthouse is under the PDC's jurisdiction. So if we were doing anything to it, we would have to do.
Maybe they could, I don't know how to say, promote our philosophy on that building being like an individual landmark, since they have all this space time with landmarks that we can never get. So we very much want that building to be an individual landmark. So since you're the only one touching it and can have anybody's contacts, can you maybe introduce us to someone there that could have our.
There's a new chair, did you hear?
Yes, I did.
That's the best news this board has.
It's fine news, it's fine news,
Oh,
but
no.
I'm asking if you could maybe introduce us, not now here, you don't have to say yes, you can just say maybe, and then later you can get back to Tammy.
Great.
Thank you.
He
Clarification,
and I sit on landmark committee, so he's definitely nicely done.
Okay.
clarification on public restrooms, if there are any available and where they are, would be super helpful.
You can't even go into Berkdale Goodman to use the public bathroom, but you want people to go into a jail.
Yeah, but
I mean,
Okay,
come
stop.
on.
What we want is
What?
publicly accessible bathrooms throughout the city.
That's an issue you make up with the mayor.
Public buildings. So Lauren, when we're talking about this is a public building, it's supposed to have a public lobby, there's public, it's public restrooms. Sorry, keep going.
Oh, by the way, I'm speaking here as a community board member, right?
But you have to
Thank
recuse, you have to state your recusal
Why are you going there? We are not there at that point.
at any,
I'm just making a comment. I'm allowed to comment.
you definitely.
When the community starts commenting out of order at the wrong group, like we do frequently at DOT.
Vicky, let's get
What?
going.
Oh, now you're short on
Yeah,
time. I see.
I am not sure if we're gonna do a positive or negative or what kind of resolution we can do, given that there's so much information that's missing.
It's not you're identifying to the Public Design Commission all of the conditions and concerns that the public had on this building, and that is still in this letter for the most
Well, that's
part.
great, so it's. gotta
And
be
then
a
the
follow-up.
additional,
The additional ones.
that we've discussed, and they have dutifully, reviewed a lot of this and made changes, and that should be picked up. I don't know, there's been a lot of changes, but whatever those are, I think that would be.
There.
And there's an actual meeting, right? You've been part of the Public Design Commission on
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Is- And we can actually testify at that meeting too?
I believe so. This is a
Yes, that
preliminary.
PC preliminary, yes. Yeah.
And what's the date that,
So it would be the June meeting.
Yeah.
June, look up their calendar.
Submitting on May second, I think.
Yeah, we're submitting on May 22nd. The meeting is going to be June.
So-
I'll just have a look at that PDC calendar.
Has this
The
board
PDC's
seen all,
calendar is public.
has this board seen all the same documents that the PDC is seeing?
Yes, sometimes in a PDC submission, there are, there's sometimes like more detailed technical drawings, like an elevation of a facade detail or something like that, that we don't include in the community board dissertation. It's not as relevant to the types of questions that we're getting. But as far as the design intent and the design that is moving forward, the PDC, yes, that's what we showed here.
Yes.
would you do me a favor, share anything that is going to be presented at PDC that was not presented today with us, so we can have it informationally for the public?
Yeah, let us review and confirm.
Thank you.
Great, so those comments will be captured in a revision of the PDC letter that we had already. Please do their.
I had a question for everybody here, because I thought that the other building could have used a more differentiated exterior that blends better with the courthouse building, because it feels very much like, almost like the striping that was on World Trade Center. The old World Trade Center to me in a more modern, glitzy, glassy version, but did not seem as contextually related as presented. That was my perspective when I looked at it. I raised it and I asked, and I did see the comments that, you know, and I understood what you were saying about your small changes in where you felt the elevation, you know, across from the other building. I just didn't think it was contextual enough to match with the historic building. It felt very
Its own thing.
its own thing because of the elevations of the illustrations that were shown did not, I'll share exactly.
Well, I think a lot of this is in the letter, and I don't think that we would say that was resolved, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Right,
so
just
if you take a look, for
urban
example, at
context.
this one, which was the previous to the current design, you see the complete separation in the detail on the left, which is supposed to blend with one building, and on the right, it's far taller, and it has somewhat of a separation, but doesn't seem to me to match with the courthouse building in terms of the separation levels. And I'm gonna pause briefly to get to the next one where. So I'd like to make sure that that's highlighted, because that's definitely in the PDC purview of contextuality and how it fits. And so when you take a look at it here, you can see the podium behind the trees there, kind of the bottom base of the difference in the stone, the darker stone at the bottom and the lighter stone that goes up. And I didn't see or feel that it matched the new building doesn't have a band on both sides. If it had a band on both sides, it would bring the feeling.
The second building almost picks it up, I mean, the further building, right?
Yeah.
But the one that's closer doesn't address the issue.
Right, so it kind of reminds me of World Trade Center.
Can we give a summary of what you did change since the letter? So we can include it in here? I think that would be important.
All the signs at the beginning.
Yeah, that was
Where.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those changes and-
Yeah.
We have it in the.
Yeah, it's in the slide deck.
I would say that we should put in our resolution so that we know.
Right, because here they
Letter,
said
not
they
resolution.
did
This is
do
a
it.
resolution.
Right, they said, no, it was a letter.
This
It was a
we are
design
writing.
response,
Mhm.
and I don't think the design response fits enough. That's kind of where I was going.
Okay, we can address that.
Okay, related to this slide, quick question, what's going on at the setback level? Like, is that used programmatically? Does it have a function, or is it just empty space that is not going to be used?
Sorry, where?
At the setback?
Whoop, sorry,
Oh,
I got you, hold on, I apologize. There,
So when you set back,
Yeah,
what
the
happens
roof
there?
of that,
Yes,
basement?
at that, yeah,
the
what's
roof
going
of
on
that,
there?
so that's going to, you know, that's a roof of
So
the
you're
building,
not
either it's gonna
utilizing
be,
For anything.
it's not gonna be programmatically utilized.
It's not accessible.
It's accessible for maintenance, so it,
But it won't
likely
be
will
accessible what?
incorporate. it
I have
will-
no idea, that's my question.
No, it will likely incorporate, so DEP requires, right, either a green roof or photovoltaic, depending on what the square footage is, what the
Yeah.
configuration
Yeah.
is, because there's a fair bit that's required for maintenance as well. So we're balancing all of that, and that's what we're
You
gonna incorporate
require,
on those
you
roofs.
were required that based on the square footage to add additional horizontal surface.
No, so the square depends on, that's just New York City law. If you have a roof that's greater than 200 square feet and it's not being utilized for mechanical, you have to incorporate either sort of photovoltaics or green roof in it. So where we meet, come up against those conditions, that's what we're gonna be doing.
Well, that's, I think Rosa is asking, what do you
Yes.
need that roof that you're introducing on the second or third level? Or is it
Yes.
for, you know, just articulation of the sign?
Well, I mean, it is because we are required by zoning to set the building back.
Right.
So that roof is going to exist. Right, so depending on if that is being utilized for mechanical or other maintenance, if it's not, then it's going to turn.
But there will
into
be
a
no
40.
human beings accessing that
There's no
area
patio
other
or-
than
There's no-
for
no,
maintenance. That was
Yes.
my
So
question.
There's
Okay.
no
Other than for
human-centered program.
And it's
Thank
only
you.
required by zoning to set back on one of the buildings, not both of them?
The other one is already set back. It's not all the way out to the property line.
And I mean, some of these setbacks are also required because of our limitations on square footage.
That's right.
You know, so it's not only the setback, but also, you know, we're very limited by how much square footage we can have above grade here. And this building is under that, but it takes some of these moves to make sure that it's under that.
Thank you.
Is there any memorandum of understanding or any, I can't remember, anything that you're doing with either park, your adjacent parks, Columbus and Collect Pond in terms of oversight or making them better or nothing, right? To me,
There's no community
I think
benefit.
that should be.
No, yeah, the adjacent park spaces.
Yes.
They are outside the scope of this project.
I'd argue they should.
No,
Well,
but
I
they
mean,
shouldn't.
when
They're
you
not.
guys
You look
look
at
at the
that
site
picture.
plan, you need to coordinate with them, especially when it comes to security, where the population goes, or the paparazzi or whatnot goes.
Right,
Someone
there's
needs to
no,
look
there's
at them
not like
together.
capital budget.
No major.
They have to make direct capital improvements to the surrounding
Right.
spaces. That's what it-
Even though that's, but that is part of the agreement where there's supposed to be bathrooms on this part, all of that, but I think you put that in the slide, right?
Yeah, they're apparently in the
we
public
actually
lobby.
Yeah.
We need to put that front and center because it's part of a design process. So when they close the building, somehow public restrooms are still acceptable to the public. And for the flood data, I'm looking at the future floodplain map that's in Acres. And I think that may be one of the. But there's definitely, we're not putting any flood barrier measurements on either side, Center or Baxter, correct?
That's correct.
And they're gonna come back to address that specifically.
Well, we'll address the discrepancy in that.
All right, so should we review it again, or we're all good with it?
Did we get everything that everyone remembers?
I think so.
God, bless.
So updates to the letter with all the changes as discussed is what the resolution is, and the letter will go out from the board.
Call the question.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Recuse. Where's Jason?
Here.
Is your hand up or down?
He said yes. He said yes. Are there any in opposition? Are there any recusals?
Yes.
Vicky Cameron recused.
Recuse.
And are there any abstentions? Motion passes.
Big thank you to the team,
Aye.
as usual.
Thank
I mean,
you.
It's a lot of years of this.
Thank you.
We're not done yet.
No, we're not.
Okay.
So,
But I have to go.
it is a next one. Oh, and
Yeah, I have to be somewhere. I'm supposed to be somewhere.
We'll be happy to know I have it.
It's not fair, right? They rescued a dog.
thank you.
I'm gonna have you sit here. Yours, and you can click your.
Hey, Vicky, can you minute?
I can't. I'm supposed to.
Okay.
Well, 5 minutes I can stay. I really
You finish?
go after.
So we have a, yes, 20 minutes to be reviewed. No, wait, I'm gonna introduce you.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm here, Owen Elton, you know him. Yes. This is number 3,
Yes, and this one is gonna just be an update with the
update from Michael.
me.
Oh, you, okay, terrific. Let's do this.
Great. So, we have a presentation on the zoning capacity and development rights in Lower Manhattan. Over the past few months, Owen has been working on this study. It examines how development potential exists under the current zoning, including recent changes such as City of Yes amendments that were accepted into law. It looks at factors like unbuilt FAR, transferable development rights, and zoning overlays to better understand where larger scale developments can go in Lower Manhattan. And Owen, our fellow, has presented this on Friday, and he has been digging into numbers and potential sites that some large developments can go in Lower Manhattan. Take it away.
Thank you. I'll try to keep it brief. I'm cognizant of the time. I'm Owen Elton. I worked with Netta and Zach as part of the fund for the City of New York's Community Planning Fellowship. I'm a second year urban planning grad student at NYU. And so, yeah, the goal was really to help kind of better understand the kind of state of the district after City of Yes, especially as it pertains to high density development, especially with all the appetite for housing and new affordable housing especially, and to try to really make sure that this information could be presented in a way that was kind of, you can get a big picture and small scale in a really accessible way, in a way that some of the city data systems don't necessarily make as easy. And as you guys obviously know, there's a lot of different special zoning districts and historic districts and landmarks in the area. I think there's over 100 landmarks. And so just to kind of talk about this is a starting map of what has been built in terms of FAR. So it kind of feels intuitive. A lot of the density is in the financial district. This one I don't think should be shocking to you guys. You guys are experts on this area. You see a lot of Tribeca, especially the residential parts up north are a little bit less dense, and as it concentrates down there. And so this compares it to currently under zoning, factoring in for the special zoning districts and for where appropriate universal affordable preference, the maximum FAR that could be built. The scale is, this compares it to what has been built right now. So what is green is not just what could be built, but versus what has already been built on that lot size. So white means that you can't build anymore. That lot has been maxed out as of right. But the darker the green means more you can go up to additional 22 FAR. And so a big part of the change the City of Yes had to deal with the landmarks. There are 78 landmark buildings in Manhattan Community Ward 1 that are eligible to transfer its development rights right now. And in some parts of the district, this can mean a lot. The rules changed dramatically too. Some of the key ones are that landmarks in historic districts, which will cover things like the South Street Seaport, as well as some of the Tribeca historical residential areas, and other low density residential zoning, specifically, I think R1 through 5 are now eligible to sell and receive landmark or transferable development rights. A lot can increase its area by up to 20% above its already maximum as of right. And there's new rules for how far you can be from the landmark to receive. And so then came up with this map, which in gold, you will see the landmark buildings, and the other buildings are eligible receivers shaded by how many additional FAR they can receive and landmark transferable development rights based on their zoning. So as you can see, again, it's kind of in the financial district, there's a lot more to grow. And in some of those empty lot or lower developed lot parcels that you saw down there, this can mean a lot of potential new height and affordable housing down there. Tribeca, especially up in the top northwest corner, is really the only part of it, the main part of it to be touched. Is it very little of it, it's mostly just one FAR for a lot of it.
The green and the white, could you just describe that again?
Yeah, so it's a similar system where the lighter the color means the less FAR. So it starts, I can kind of walk it through up here in some of these, and right here, that's 1 to 1.7 FAR based on its zoning. And then it shades all the way down.
When you say 1.7, meaning what?
So that is
the max that they could receive, or?
Yeah, that they could buy from a landmark of that lot size, so they could go to build an additional 1 to 1.7 times its lot size and square footage.
Yeah.
And so down in financial district, for some of those buildings could be receiving transferable development rights, so they could build 4.5 times their lot size and additional square footage. Which this is also roughly, I think, around 750 eligible receiver sites in the district, which is just north of half of all of the tax lots in the area. And so the goal for this one is that you can see here, I've been working on making this an interactable map that will be accessible by all of you guys, so that you'll be able to both click around and search for an address. And the goal would be, so if you click, example, the New York Stock Exchange highlighted there, 11 Wall Street. The pop-up right now, this is obviously very small. It looks much bigger on a normal computer screen, but it'll tell you all of its potential receiver sites and how much square footage each of those sites could buy from a place like the stock exchange. And conversely, if you selected another parcel, it would tell you what landmarks they could buy from. Additionally, it tells you some of the existing information like the address, the BBL, what has been built now, the built for area ratio, and how much they could build as of right already. So the goal would be to really just make a tool that when you guys are hearing about projects or people are talking about things, or for your own curiosity, that it's just a really easy, engageable, interactable tool to navigate around. So the goal is to, make it a web-hosted version so you guys can interact and engage with it wherever, and incorporate more of the existing ACRIS file documents on already sold air rights, which I've incorporated almost all of them into it already, and then some of the zoning lot mergers, but that is a lot of very old historic PDFs to comb through, so that part is in progress currently.
Great.
So hopefully we, have updates for you soon with a fully usable version for you.
How much longer do we have you for?
The official part of it just ended this week, but I'm still planning to work on this project to completion, probably over the next month. It should be finished.
Do the East River piers have unused air rights?
What's our?
Do the East River piers?
Some of them do, a couple of them
Are
do.
they on your, is it part of your presentation?
The ones that do have, maybe they don't.
Should also mention
I didn't know, I don't check, yeah.
what's not part of your.
Oh, yeah, so we, in consultation with NETA and ZAC, excluded, Battery Park City, which is mainly because the landmarks there can only go to Battery Park City and a lot of, that is a special zoning where it's kind of zoned for only itself. Also some other sites that don't have the air rights, you'll see like, for example, like building like the World Trade Center obviously is built up enough where it does not have air rights to sell. And so some of those have been excluded. And then as receiver sites, there are some city, like parks and stuff like that, that have been marked as landmarks, but obviously couldn't receive them. So they've been moved as well as Liberty, Roosevelt, and Governor's Island.
So piers 11, 15, and 6, are they included there?
In my work, they had not been eligible to, I will double check that, but I don't.
That would be of interest. And then the area underneath the FDR Drive, are they soft sites?
They do.
Yeah, they do have air rights to sell, yeah.
To sell, and can they receive as well?
I think under official zoning, if the city had wished that for it to be, they are like registered as like full parcels with normal zoning, so they theoretically, under how it's set up in the data systems, yes. I'm not sure how that would work in practice.
One day the FDR Drive maybe may disappear.
Yeah, and then in that case, they would be eligible, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So there's,
Fantastic. I'm sorry I have to go, but
Thank you,
really,
Alice.
bravo.
Thank you.
Wow, incredible.
so there are two sections in Tribeca that are C64 zoning, which is commercial limited height zoning. Have you taken that into account in the
Isn't it
Tribeca
that
area?
big?
Yeah, so all of this is,
Do you want to use the magic? wand?
all this was derived from like the city data and zoning. So yeah, where those sections are zoned for that, it is appropriate. Some areas, don't have the landmarks to grow from it, but the areas that are zoned for that should be reflected in that.
Showing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back here, right?
There's, yeah, that's one section, and then there's the lower section where, for example, where Independence Plaza is and where BMCC is, and a little bit further south, that's C64 zoning, and that
Those are-
they could build very high.
Yeah.
You already have a proposal already for that.
Those are state owned?
No,
or
no.
they city owned?
No.
Private.
Private, well, so BMCC is state, but other locations are private.
Those are these one, let's see, which is Warren Street, it's right here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's check on those. And
Yeah, I
make
think that should be
reports.
accurate. Largely I believe the darkest green was largely as a product of the special zoning overlays where mainly citywide, like, I think that it is the general C64 zoning is that you can gain that much in transferable development rights. And I think it's specifically in so the special zoning overlays, which is why specifically the financial district can gain so much versus other areas similarly zoned.
I think before we like put it on our website, we'll send it to the committee to just play around and see, hey, is it coming back with the right responses?
The approaches to the Brooklyn Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge have either air that they can transmit or receive?
Here?
Yeah, it does look like
I mean, there has been
a
development.
little bit in this strip here. Yeah, right there.
Is that sending or receiving?
That for the gold, that would be sending.
I mean, the Brooklyn Bridge is landmarked,
Yeah.
so you're not going to be building on it anytime soon.
Would the approach the same, probably.
It's a really good question, but whether or not the ramps are,
If you look at other bridges, they sometimes cantilever over the approaches.
Yeah, and my understanding
George
this,
Washington Bridge is in the same.
like this part of the approach is landmarked and then this part is not, but it's designated as a receiver part. So that tiny little bit up there. So I think the whole, most of it is as you get closer to the bridge, but then as you get a little further out, I think they've left a little.
But is your concern that if they can build above the bridge or if they can give to, let's say, 100 Gold, which is right adjacent?
Those are my questions.
I think that, sorry, but it's incorrect. Actually, that section that it actually is a continuation of the Brooklyn Bridge, so it would be landmarked.
Okay.
This one?
Yes, that.
Okay, I'll double
light
check on that, yeah.
Baby blue, yeah.
I've been generally working with the cities like Pluto data, so I can go back and double check to make sure all the lots should be marked as landmarked are. And then-
Yeah.
I've been relying on the city's data designation.
So the black areas,
Those are lots that can't receive any air rights. Those are just out of that range. They're in the previous layers. So all of this, like the previous maps that I showed, will be available as layers that you can click through. And so even for the lots that can't receive the landmarks, it'll still be an easy way to get information about, what has been built, but what it's zoned for, what its maximum, floor area ratio and lot size, both in, I've been trying to, on the pop-ups, when you click a lot, I've been trying to present it both in floor area ratio or FAR terms as well as just square footage terms. I think that kind of makes it easier to see it.
great work.
Thank you.
Going
Really
back to the Brooklyn Bridge, and this part, the landmarks and the receiver side, that's why it's coming up as blue?
No. I think, well, the Brooklyn Bridge is landmarked, so it can't be. a
But this is the
receiver side.
approach to it, as Michael was saying, right? This can be the,
Yeah, I'm looking at the east-west approach and I'm also looking at the north-south approach.
so if the beginning of it, which is
Yeah.
I don't.
The promenade, yeah.
They say that that is a landmark and it can also be a receiver site, while the other parts of the bridge are landmarks and they can't
How
be.
could a landmark be a receiver site? Because the whole point is the landmark status protects it.
So maybe
from
the
being
approach of it
audited.
is not landmark.
Yeah, and I can double check. There's a chance also that the city might have filed like a zoning law declaration that isn't reflected here, where then because they recognize one tax law as a landmark, maybe they treat the whole like zoning law as a landmark, but I will go.
I would
That's a good,
say
that's a good idea.
Mark it up, it would be
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Your feedback is really helpful in making me make it better and more accurate and more useful.
Are there any other sites that can be large-scale general districts?
Large scale, what districts?
Large-scale general districts?
What does that mean?
That's how you took the air right from the piers and got it into the parking lot. They created a large-scale general district.
I've never heard.
So can you
That
go
was
to the, I don't know.
previous.
which one is-
Community board meetings.
This looks amazing.
Thank
Super
you.
interesting.
Yeah. It's gonna be very helpful.
Thank you.
I think so.
I'll send around this presentation if there are any comments or discrepancies that
Question.
Yeah.
I think we should bring it up and see if we can address it with the
Yeah.
data that we have. If not,
One layer that would be interesting to know, so I live in Florida, I know that dense, dark greenness
Yeah.
and surrounded by lot of yellowness. And one thing that would be interesting for me to understand is like, for instance, our building is condo. So it's never going to be modified. Or enlarged, to a significant degree. And I think a lot of the buildings around us are also like the ownership structures, whether it's a co-op or condo, it's such that it's likely not going to be redeveloped. Therefore, I doubt they would be a qualified or a likely
In practice,
receiver
yeah.
site versus single ownership sites. So it might be interesting to see which ones are actually truly developable receiver sites versus sites that are most likely legally going to, like, just, it wouldn't happen.
So the ownership type can be.
Kind of, it would be, yeah, because it would be like you would only dissolve a co-op or a condo in a case of like
Well, you
catastrophic
could have an
failure.
extreme case, you know, there could be a fire and then the building has.
Yeah, catastrophic
Yeah.
failure, yeah, yeah. That-
Yeah.
We have one item on.
Oh, we do?
We have one
Oh.
more.
Yeah, yeah, you're not
Franklin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Owen.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So 65 Franklin, we reviewed it last committee meeting and we voted in the last board. Our resolution was pending an environmental assessment review because they had sent the application. The results were not in. They were confident that it's gonna come back with negative impact. And it did come back with negative impact. So our resolution still stands. I'm just giving an update to the board that they did the.
And George is on if anybody had any specific questions.
So moved.
George, did you want to add color?
You know, they're
Oops, sorry.
responsive to the community board's comments. But you know, they listened and they made changes that were reflective to your comments, and they modified the application to make certain that, you know, it's part of the record.
So what did they change, George?
So it was the you had made comments about the max base height at the setback. So you know, the building goes up and then sets back, and their building envelope was bigger than their building. That gave them design flexibility. And you were like saying, no, it should be lower at the street. And so they lowered the building envelope to the building size that they had there to give essentially removing their flexibility to increase the height of the building at the setback. And they didn't do it on Broadway, but they did it on Franklin and what is it, Benson Street?
Correct. Which were the, less wide streets.
Yes, less wide, right?
Tiny alley, actually. Yes, that one of them is a tiny.
Yes. That's good to
That's a
hear
good
that they
thing,
were
sounds like.
responsive. Yeah.
Okay. Great. It is 9:03.
Three.
Three.
Thank you,
And
George.
You're adjourned. Thank you.